Bueno, mira, señora, ay señorita, nadie sabía lo que iba a pasar. Solamente fuiste y me dejaste solito en la eternidad. Señora, ay señorita, yo sé que ahora estás lejos de mí y siempre estoy pensando lo que estás haciendo y si te sientes más feliz, y si te sientes más feliz, oye. Y espero yo que no te sientas sola y que tu vida está llena de felicidad, porque deseo que nadie tenga que sentirse ahora mismo como yo, atrapado en la oscuridad, solito en la eternidad, solito en la eternidad, oye. Trompeta.
So Andrew, can I sell you on my worldview?
Yes.
Your wife has 3 baby daddies and has been married twice before.
And you
you
lick sniz. You lick sniz. You lick sniz. You lick sniz. You're a fucking diet. Don't talk shit about my wife, you stupid bitch.
Solamente fuiste. Sola y que tu vida está llena de felicidad, porque deseo que nadie tenga que sentirse ahora mismo como yo, atrapado en la oscuridad y solito en la eternidad. Ay señora, vuélvete, ay señora, ya se fue.
What it is, what it is, what it is. What's up, Riot Chew? Rafi Chew? Ba-da-da-bum. You lick sniz, come.
Mouth. Shut your stupid bitch mouth.
Your wife with the 3 baby
What did I just say?
Keep your wife's name out my damn mouth. What's up, everybody? Where are my disagreeers at? Quiet, piggy. What it is, what it do.
I get tired of these criticisms of the president.
Oh shit, we got a Truth Social. Where is Lisandro Peña? Lisandro Peña, did you put your name in the goblet? Lisandro Peña is my personal biggest rival. Yo, what up, Sharp?
I get tired.
Alright, we'll take a look at this shit. Oh, he'll show up. I don't know the difference between Labor and Lisandro. And he has another alias as well. Ba-ba-do-do-do. Yo, what up, folks? What's going on with Rubio? Someone help my my bro Rubio out. Hey, Magma, yeah, we can definitely do it tonight at some point. Let me get through the politics, but if you're still up, we can do it. Then we can talk about Jesus. You guys know Jesus Navas? I would call him Jesus Navas. What up, everybody? Hope you're having a wonderful Saturday night. Common Good says, I feel so deceived. I had a soft spot for pencil. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I don't know the difference between... I think only pencil is Lisandro Peña, and I think debate bore is... Wait a second. Are they all the same person? Now with the whole Twitter update, like, I feel like half the internet is just bots from India and, like, other places. And they claim to be American. I don't know. He has many different personas. He's many different fursonas, too. He confessed he's Lisandro, so I reconciled myself to that alias. How are politics in general not a nauseating experience by its nature? You know what? We hate it. We want to go to brunch, but we also, I love it. I love talking about this stuff. So it's kind of weird because I do want to go back to brunch, but I also do enjoy discussing politics and the legal stuff too. You're the last American on Twitter. I know. Mine says that I might not be American. It's like, warning. What does it say? It says, one of our partners has indicated this account may be connected via a proxy. So even though it says based in US, I guess it's in doubt. How you guys doing? How my squad at? Is that even a phrase? I can't even talk right now. A lot of things going on. A lot of different occurrences, even on this weekend. I want to get through some of that stuff, and then I'll open it up for callers if you disagree on any of it. Cat Turd is like, what did the libs at Twitter do to my followers? The MAGA bots fell off hard. Yeah, true. A lot of these like Roman statute accounts were also revealed as originating from distinctly not Western sources. A little sus. Aristotle said politics is the highest good. Did he really? I wish I was able to just quote like that. Like all my quotes. Word war update. We'll get into word war. I reached out to Rob to put my name in contention, and he was very polite about everything. I think he's still going through some of the Sarah the Raging Tomato drama. That drama is like the gift that keeps on giving for him. Because he has, I don't know, his own clips for that. He has his own audios for that. And he's gone through like many different phases about it. So we can talk a little word war debate. Little Rob Nor, Andrew Wilson updates. I mean, I don't really. There was like he invited people to a Twitter space to debate like whether or not he's a hypocrite. But frankly, I don't really have a strong opinion about whether or not he's a hypocrite because of that stuff. You guys might have, because I don't really listen to as much of his debates. Just the ones that touch on politics where there's like usually some, hook for me. So on like the insurrection or on Trump stuff or things like that. So, it was anyone could come on and talk to him about it. But if the topic is just, am I a hypocrite? I don't have a strong view on that. He's a self-described hypocrite. Rob is. But no, that was, sorry. Not clear with my pronouns. Pronouns need to go. All of them. No preferred pronouns, nothing. Only proper nouns. Only nouns. No more pronouns. No more this is, no more that. None of it. That's my fault. No, granted, it's my fault. I love you. Keep up the good work. Thank you. I love you too, Zalib. Venezuela. If you don't have strong principles, being a hypocrite is pretty boring. I don't know that he doesn't have any strong principles. That's just like not a fun debate for me to participate in unless I have like strong views on it. Like if Rob Norse asked, is the topic, am I a hypocrite? I would say, I would jump into that one. But like, am I a hypocrite because I'm a stepdad? I don't know, guys. And maybe that makes me the loser. I just don't want to jump. It also feels like a little, that behavior seems a little clout chasey. Just to debate for the purpose of, on something I don't really care that much about, on a Twitter space as well. We don't even get the faces involved. Nah. It was such a good day. No, like, let's be real. This Charlie person, in that 1 5-second moment, had a more impactful response than anything I've ever said in any debate. I don't know if it was relevant. I don't even know the topic of the debate was, but in that 5 seconds, Charlie really was able to capture the fascination of a nation in a way that perhaps I never will. But it was more because of the response. And that gets to a little thing that I was thinking about, which is I think that people's emotional reactions and how they respond to things, that informs the audience on like who's winning more than any of the points being said. And this is not like some like incredible epiphany that I'm having. I know that people, the Nixon debate, all that stuff, but even in these circles in which it's online political debate, it's debate about this or that, it really is about, I feel like, momentum and emotion and who looks like they emotionally lost it and lost their cool. And that's like 70% of the battle for most of the audience. You will definitely be naming your next child Pisco. That's good to hear. It's good to hear. We need more of this. Is there anyone named whiskey? Or like named rum? Or vodka? There's no way someone's named vodka, right? Let me ask Grok or Google. Has anyone ever been named vodka? Well, it's highly unlikely that someone has legally been named vodka. Let's find anyone who's named it. Rum Johnson. Vodka was the name of a horse. Vodka was the cyber alias of Columbine school shooter Dylan Klebold. Interesting. These are all interesting facts. So I think that 80% of that moment's impact would be lessened by him just chilling instead of saying, I like sniz. Or, fuck. What did he say? What did he say? Oh, you lick sniz. No, he was saying the opposite. It's gross. I guess it's gross to lick sniz. I guess he was just trying to say, but you're gay. And I just feel like it would be funnier if he just said that instead of saying you lick sniz and kind of losing it a little bit. I'm defending my wife's honor. My honor. It kind of feels like you lost. Reveals more about them. What's that from? I'm talking about Anna. My wife's Anna. My Anna. That's Donnie Sack. You lick sniz is kind of iconic. I guess it is kind of iconic. He really, it's a legendary response. Gage. She bodied his wife. But I don't even think the point was, I don't even know what the point was, frankly. It would only be, almost be funnier to me if it was like a point about religion or something. And she's like, but your wife had children in other relationships? Just random. Please clarify that being bisexual is not considered gay. Is it not? I feel like gay is a more general term to describe different flavors of LGBT, but also homosexual men and men who have sex with men and women who have sex with women. I don't know. I'm not really going to get into that, the weeds there. All you people with degrees. Since you got your degree. Well, I have a degree, but I don't have a degree in LGBT studies. I never heard that word. I have never heard the word sniz before, Andrew, either. It sounds like a Dr. Seuss term. Gay is absolutely an umbrella term. It is what it is. That's just kind of what that's my vibe of it. But I can't prove it. More scandal in the Trump administration. We're going to get into some of that. I think we should start with Ukraine. What's going on here with Ukraine? Because it's just a fucking mess. And you can't believe anything that's coming out of the administration. They'll just lie with like reckless abandon. I saw a filing the other day in some other case about the debunking that the DHS was doing from Trisha McLaughlin. I think that's her name, last name, whatever loser they have on Twitter responding to everything. And the court documented like multiple times in which she straight up lied about her fact checks. So, yeah. It's language changes faster than opinions. I feel like all of these conversations, not all, 60 to 70% are about language and terminology. Even the discussions that I had with Ryan the other day, I keep coming back to that one because it's just a wild one. And that's a nice little dovetail into the Ukraine topic. The American moral proposition. That's just like a term. Like instead of having a conversation about is DEI justified or something, or did the Democrats push DEI, or whatever topic you wanted to have about DEI, he has to construct this convoluted phrase that no one even has ever heard of in a technical sense. Like someone Googled it and there's no response in any academic. So he just like invented some term At some point, I kind of want to see his response. I think they did a cope stream afterward. Ooh, maybe that would be fun. I'm not going to spend too much time on the Ukraine stuff. I might pull something up though. So, background for this is obviously there's a war going in Ukraine, and this is the dovetail to Ryan Mullally. Ryan was like, because at one point Trump, he flip flops on this stuff depending on who he talks to next. How do I share? He flip flops on like what his position is on so many of this international relations stuff. And there was a Twitter exchange he and I had, that is Ryan and I had, where I had posted Trump doesn't get any credit for this shit or something like that, where it's like, oh, or I forget what it was. He might have added me even. Or I was like, give me a break. This is like all your fault in the first place. And he goes, shouldn't we be praising Trump? Shouldn't we be praising Trump for the Ukraine stuff? When he says like, not 1 inch of Ukraine. He said something like that. Like Ukraine gets everything. And Ryan's like, why haven't you praised him? You political idiot or something, or you hack. And I'm like, he doesn't get credit. He doesn't get credit for this. Maybe I can find that exchange. Maybe I can. I'm only gonna spend 30 seconds looking, so you guys don't worry, all right? So from Pisco Liddy, Lucy. Oh, yeah. Here we go. Oh, this motherfucker. So, this was the exchange. I responded to Caitlin Collins saying, schizo foreign policy continues. Trump's promise to end the war quickly was obviously garbage, because Trump had said, I think Ukraine is in a position to fight and win all of Ukraine back in its original form. And I'm like, schizo foreign policy continues. And he added me, he's like, what position would you take that would please you? I say, full American support of Ukraine and its territorial integrity that isn't contingent on flattery or transitory whims. Billions of dollars of aid, no random gaps in aid or intelligence sharing, and no extractive mineral deals. So then you would consider this policy shift a positive development, right? And I'm like, if it could be relied on, of course, but because it can't be, and because the support continues to be contingent on dumb shit, not going to give him credit. He's responsible for the policy shift in the first place. He doesn't get credit for unreliably moving partially backwards, lol. And he's so smug, this piece of sorry, Ryan and I, we can get along interpersonally, but like sometimes it just pisses me off. This is Pisco's reaction to good news. The internet is like, when I have the obvious take, which is you can't trust this, you obviously can't trust this. People, even this conservative, he'll pull the rug under the Ukrainians again in a month or so. I mean, he's not far off. It was 2 months before this plan, but even in between that, there have been other like statements and pullbacks and stuff. And so everyone in the saner world, we would cheer the president for doing something we like, even if we aren't on his team. That's a saner world. A saner world is to live like this. That's the sane world. And now, we have conflicting statements from bipartisan sets of senators that Rubio, the Secretary of State, related that the 28-point plan that Trump had announced, like, this is the end of the war, which is hugely favorable to Russia. It is it oddly like puts Trump in some position of authority, similar to like the Gaza plan. Like these guys, they've totally gotten Trump's number, and they just realize that open flattery is all it takes. I'm sure Mamdani learned that too when he had the meeting with him in the White House. Like, he is so predictable If we're just nice to him, he'll be like, oh, great. Trump gets to be in charge of Gaza. Trump is in charge of, like, whether if Russia decides to renege on the deal. Anyway, the plan was super Russia favored, gave a bunch of land over, a bunch of promises to, like, never join NATO, and for, like, America not to, or NATO itself not to expand. They just, like, very clearly call into the question of sovereignty in the first place. You know, this whole idea that we're allowed to make deals with whoever we want, and the territorial concessions, I think, are shit. I think Zelensky has to leave, or there needs to be, like, elections in the context of an invasion. So just like a pure Russian deal. And everyone's like, this is dog shit, dude. Zelensky puts out a statement kind of suggesting that it's a horrible shit and he's not going to betray the Ukrainian people. The EU's standing, or at least I'm always scared that one of these European countries they're gonna do their turn with right-wing populism. Some of them already have, and some are Russian-aligned leaders, but in general, the EU has been standing with Ukraine as well in response to this plan. And now it's come out that, at least from certain senators, that Rubio said, this is a Russian document that, like, we translated. This is the Russian proposal. So Rubio now denies the U.S. had any input into the savage 28-point. All right, so understand this is a biased thing, but it comes from reporting that this is not a U.S. plan at all. From Senator Rounds, Rubio did make a phone call to us this afternoon. I think he made it very clear that we are the recipients of a proposal that was delivered to one of our representatives. It is not our recommendation. It's not our peace plan. It is a proposal that was received. And as an intermediary, we have made arrangements to share it. We did not release it. It was leaked. It was released by our members of our representatives, or our representatives. This is an opportunity to receive it, and that it has been utilized and delivered to the Ukrainians, and that they will have an opportunity to respond. And in doing so, you have one side being presented and the opportunity for the other side to respond. Angus King says the leaked 28-point plan, which according to Secretary Rubio is not in the administration's position, is essentially the wish list of the Russians. So, yeah, they put that out as Trump's plan, and it's just like the verbatim wish list of the Russians. At least that's what bipartisan senators are saying that Rubio said. Let's see if Rubio's updated his Twitter. Nope. What is there to say? It's a fucking mess. This whole thing is a mess. We can't believe the administration. They say different things to each other. They say different things on tariffs. They say different things on Israel. They say different things on Ukraine. This is a very dysfunctional administration. Even when they put in, like, a bunch of Trump cronies, they're more worried about their little outfits, Kristi Noem, Pete Hegseth, or they're worried about internal rivalries, Dan Bongino versus Kash Patel versus Pam Bondi, and their personalities, than, like, running the country. That really is some of our saving grace, is that so many people who are part of this administration and leadership roles hate each other, are angling for their own benefit, or are stupid as fuck. Tommy Pigott, I guess he's the spokesperson for the State Department, in response to the reporting, said, "This is blatantly false." He responded to the Angus King tweet. So he responded to, let me see if I can. So notice Tommy Pigott, he responds not to the Rounds tweet, but to the Angus King tweet, because I guess they're just, like, so partisan. It's crazy. Even, like, the decision on who to respond to. Oh, look who it is. Have I ratio now? I'm halfway to a ratio though. Not horrible. Not horrible. And he says, without any evidence, this is blatantly false. As Secretary Rubio and the entire administration has consistently maintained, the plan was authored by the U.S. with input from both the Russians and the Ukrainians. Then why was it originally written in Russia? So you just can't trust anything that these losers are saying. And so Rubio specifically has a call, presumably to distance himself from the plan. Like, I don't have any indication that Rubio isn't thinking about running for office, and that's why he's trying to distance himself from the plan. Because everyone's worried about advancement for themselves. Knives out, beaks bloody. They're all like, this is a tense moment, and it feels like so much of the administration, sometimes to our benefit, though to the detriment of the whole country. They're all like trying to get in a position where they can take advantage of a power vacuum that's everyone sees coming. And so Rubio probably doesn't want to be associated with the plan. That's my guess. It's a total speculation. But otherwise, why would these senators come out and say this? And it's like that also with they'll just blatantly lie like they did in the filings with Comey. They're like, they did vote on it. They voted on it because the grand jury said they voted on ambiguously. It was like so ambiguous what the grand jury guy was saying, even though they know there was no presentation to the grand jury. And so they say, we're just going to change what the word like vote on something means. Oh, so they voted on the counts, and that means they voted on the second indictment in the Comey situation. And so I'm sure they'll come up with some bullshit pretext to unify everything and make sense of it. But there really is no way to make sense of all of the contradictions in positioning, in their statements. So it's just a mess. Even if you were looking at this, take the position of a principled pro-MAGA Trump person. You can't be happy. The only way that you make sense of all this is if you are literally Cat Turd. Cat Turd, Jack Posobiec. All of like the true ride or die dick suckers. Yeah, I know. Principled MAGA. Like, imagine that you were just like interested in prosecuting Democrats. Like, you're this deluded person who thinks that there has been a plot by the Democrats against Trump, an illegal plot that's filled with all of this different fraud and stuff. The administration has not been effective at taking those concerns and actually addressing them in concrete ways. Their prosecutions, by and large, with the exception probably of Bolton, that one looks like there's maybe some legs to it. And it's an investigation that's already, I think, even under Biden. But the indictments all suck. They're all like already gasping for air and might be dismissed already. Doesn't mean that the damage isn't done with the political prosecutions themselves. I'm not trying to downplay it, but in terms of the results that you want, they throw out this red meat, but it's not going to stick. The Comey indictment, I don't think is going to stick. I give it a 0.01% chance of landing in a conviction. If you're looking for wins on the front of domestic agenda, Trump promised to bring prices down. That has not occurred. He promised to deal with issues related to government efficiency and bringing the deficit down. That has not happened. And everyone sees it. His approval rate is down in every conceivable metric, even among his own people. And even then, Bolton isn't a Dem. So I don't even understand, like, on what grounds you can say. The one grounds that they go to is the less crossings, the less illegal crossings, which is true, but I just don't give credit. The way that you combat that is you say you don't give credit for illegal conduct that brings about results. It would be like giving credit for just arresting people without probable cause and in violation of the Constitution. Right? I don't give credit for that. to solve a problem. They don't care about the rule of law, so for them, it's an unambiguous win. Fighting on their terms on the border, you can't, because there is a result there, and they don't care about like the cost of it. Then it's just that, you know. It is a little funny though that a lot of these deportations are happening against people. The rate of detention for non-violent, non-criminal record people in immigration custody has increased significantly. And there's almost like a 1-to-1 ratio. I wouldn't say it's 1-to-1 ratio, but there's a direct relationship between the deportations and increase in the cost of living. I saw that there was Ben Shapiro. I sometimes watch the Shapiro videos now because there's so much cope and lies in them that I watch them and I just get triggered. But I also laugh. And he's like, you know, one thing that Trump could do to lower prices is bring in skilled labor. We need really skilled labor. If you want to lower prices, you also want unskilled labor. One of the prices that people care most about is the price of food. And so you need people to work on these farms. And so they blame all of these immigrants for their cost of living issues, for housing prices, which is wild. But at the end of the day, it's not going to help the prices situation. They've been sold a false bill of goods. And even in a context in which they got their laundry list of immigration desires, they got the legislation they wanted with the big beautiful bill, billions and billions of dollars into it. It has not helped. It has not helped prices. It has not made everyone happy. It's just like a stat. They look at the stat, but it doesn't bring anyone any joy. Okay. I'm gonna now. So yeah, administration sucks. There are internal divisions. They're impossible to deny. The Ukraine thing is trash. Doesn't surprise me that he's desperately trying to like solve his internal issues with foreign solutions. But that's just a recipe for disaster. It's not going to work. Either in the context of starting a war in Venezuela, if that's what he wants to do, or ending wars in Ukraine and in Gaza, where there are additional ceasefire violations and no one seems even confident that there is a ceasefire right now. Very ambiguous. Certainly not a pathway to the establishment of normal relations and like a permanent settlement, a permanent peace, whatever. He's not going to get buoyed by his foreign policy accomplishments. That's cope. That's just cope. My guess is he just wants to say that he made peace. And he thinks that his problems will go away if he does that. But they won't. Because the problems are systemic and they relate to people's domestic concerns. If you had to put a percentage chance on him not finishing his term due to impeachment or resignation, what percentage would that be? I think resignation, I put it at 15%. Probably 10%. And that really is in the last days for purposes of receiving a pardon. I think the chance of impeachment and removal from office are like 0.01%. I don't think it's likely. I think you would need to see a Democratic supermajority in the Senate elected this midterm, which is impossible. I think they'd like need to win probably every seat. Now, thank you so much for the follow on Twitch. Guys, great time to follow the channel. Sub if you have that little Prime subscription. Or if you got a little bit of coins lying around. Appreciate you. I think death is the most likely scenario of him leaving office prematurely. followed by retirement or resignation, right close to when he leaves office for purposes of receiving a pardon, or if he gets like bored or something, or if he has like a stroke. Another stroke, allegedly. Usha Vancing without wedding ring, I wouldn't read it into that. But, and again, what do I know? Can you imagine if they announced JD Vance with Erica? Now, I love my wife, Usha, and my kids, Vivek, and I forget the other kid. But I'm trying to do what Charlie would. Sorry. The Charlie stuff. That's I think the Charlie death, like, that was bad for America for many reasons, but I think that has caused the youth to more decisively become, to the extent that the right wing, like Groyper adjacent, which I think is bad. We are in a tough situation, and that is also what I want to talk about with respect to this, and it relates to a friend of ours, Cenk Uygur. This is Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Hi, everyone. I've always represented the common American man and woman as a member of the House of Representatives, which is why I've always been despised in Washington, D.C., and just never fit in. Americans are used by the political industrial complex of both political parties.
She's not a great reader.
Election cycle after election cycle, in order to elect whichever side can convince Americans to hate the other side more. And the results are always the same, no matter which way.
This coming from a woman, I mean, like, imagine allowing this woman to lecture anybody on divisive rhetoric and having talking points for the purpose of making one side hate the other side. Imagine that ridiculous concept, that we would take our cues from Marjorie Taylor Greene on divisive rhetoric and lack of unity. It is preposterous. And we'll get into Cenk's whole. This is insane. He's insane.
The political pendulum.
And it feels like every 2 seconds I'm back and forth on Cenk, because I'll defend him when the administration is like, let us see your papers, American citizen. And I'm like defending him, or he'll say something based, but then like he'll just say something so insane.
Swings, Republican or Democrat, nothing ever gets better for the common American man or woman. The debt goes higher. Corporate and global interests remain Washington's sweethearts.
The debt goes higher. Now, I'm curious. I actually don't know this. So Marjorie Taylor Greene did vote for the big, beautiful bill. That this woman would talk about trying to fix the debt. She voted for the biggest nuclear bomb to our debt colon that has ever existed in the history of the Republic. She is the problem. She has described, so far, the points that she's describing, she's the problem, because she voted for the big, beautiful bill, and she is one of the most divisive and hate-spewing politicians that the country has ever seen.
American jobs continue to be replaced, whether it's by illegal labor or legal labor by visas or just shipped overseas. Small businesses continue to be swallowed by big corporations. Americans' hard-earned tax dollars always fund foreign wars, foreign aid, and foreign interest. And the spending power of the dollar continues to decline. And
I love that, by the way. She is full on embracing this. What's the proper term? Like xenophobic, anti-foreign rhetoric that is putting all of America's problems on foreigners and immigrants. And Cenk is humoring it. He's essentially saying that she's a force for good. And in doing so, he's kind of, in a way, embracing an America First rhetoric.
The average.
And by America first, I don't mean that in the sense of like the American country should put the interest of its citizens first. I mean in the kind of negative connotation of that phrase as used by the Groypers, where its calculation of what's in the best interest of Americans is very short-sighted
Large American family can
and racist.
no longer survive on a single breadwinner's income, as both parents have to work in order to simply survive. And today, many in my children's generation feel hopeless for their future and don't think they will ever realize the American dream. And that breaks my heart. I ran for
That breaks my heart. Pause to fucking do a little fake cry.
Congress in 2020
She's so phony, man. Like, I don't know why anyone buys this.
and have fought every single day believing that Make America Great Again meant America first. I have one of the most conservative voting records in Congress, defending the First Amendment, Second Amendment, unborn babies, because I believe God creates life at conception, and I love to fight for the little guy. Strong, safe borders, I have fought hard for that. I've fought against COVID tyrannical insanity and mandated mass vaccinations.
Mask vaccinations.
To fight for the little guy. Strong, safe borders, I have fought hard for that. I've fought against COVID tyrannical insanity and mandated mass vaccinations, and I've never voted to fund foreign wars
Mandated mask vaccinations.
with your hard-earned tax dollars.
Oh, mass.
However, with almost 1 year into our majority, the legislature has been mostly sidelined. We endured an 8-week shutdown, wrongly, resulting in the House not working for the entire time. And we are entering campaign season, which means all courage leaves and only safe campaign re-election mode is turned on.
And this is, I think, an important point about where I do agree with Marjorie Taylor Brown, as the Trumpster would say, that we are trying to win a game against time. I've said this from the start of the administration. We need to buy time, and slow down the administration, slow it down, slow it to a crawl. And she's recognizing, I think, as well as the rest of us, that if we keep pushing this way, and if we keep just slowing them down, if we keep criticizing them, talking shit, whatever, that we can run the clock out on the administration, and they'll be too lazy and too preoccupied to do anything that we can't, at least in some respect, undo. So I think that there is a recognition that time's running out. We're already like almost a year into the administration, a year since election day. And people are worried about the midterms. And so this dude is quickly becoming a lame duck, and he's not going to be able to do anything if Democrats win the House.
In the House of Representatives. During the longest shutdown in our nation's history, I raged against my own speaker and my own party for refusing to proactively work diligently to pass a plan to save Americans' health care and protect Americans from outrageous, overpriced, and unaffordable health insurance policies. The House should have been in session working every day to fix this disaster, but instead...
Fix it how? By doing what Biden wanted? By following what the Democrats wanted to do? Y'all have no plan. You understand that? The Republicans have no plan on healthcare. They have nothing. So they will do this, speak out of both sides of their mouth and say, oh, yeah, we need to do something about the healthcare. What do you want to do? Because it's the Democrats who actually care about it and have been proposing expanding the ACA, doing a public option. And it's just so funny to have these Republicans now lecture us about healthcare, lecture us about divisive rhetoric, lecture us about bad faith appeals to the electorate.
America was for...
And also she mentioned immigration and stuff. What was the scuttling of the bipartisan immigration bill, if not the most brazen act of calculating electioneering that has ever existed?
Force-fed, disgusting political drama once again from both sides of the aisle on television every single day. My bills, which reflect many of President Trump's executive orders, like calling for a new census counting Americans only to draw new districts, making English the official language of the U.S., making it...
These are things that Americans really care about, is like naming things, making it the official language of America. And the census part, that's just not in keeping with the Constitution and the history of this country. But they're obsessed with these useless token gestures that don't matter, that don't affect anyone's lives.
It a felony to medically trans a minor, and other bills like eliminating capital gains taxes on the sale of your primary home and eliminating H-1B
Eliminating capital gains taxes on the sale of your primary home.
visas. Just sit. They all sit.
Wait, eliminate
Other bills like
H-1Bs?
eliminating capital gains taxes on the sale of your primary home and eliminating H-1B
Getting rid of all of them. Getting rid of all of them, because that'll really help our prices.
visas. Just sit. They all sit collecting dust.
Like, Cenk is signal boosting this woman. We need you here to fight against H-1B visas. We need you here to fight to make the census anti-constitutional. We need you here to make all of our lives harder and to keep spreading your useless nonsense on healthcare.
That's how it is for most members of Congress bills. The Speaker never brings them to the floor for a vote. Many common Americans are no longer easily convinced by paid political propaganda spokespersons and consultants on TV and paid shills on social media obediently serving with cult-like conviction to force others to swallow the political party talking points.
Cult-like devotion. This is a QAnoner. This is a QAnoner.
Because they know
She's a Trump supporter.
how much credit card debt they have. They know how much their bills have gone up over the past 5 years. They actually do their own grocery shopping and no food costs too much. Their rent has increasingly gone up and up. They have been outbid by corporate asset managers too many times when they put in an offer to buy a house. They have been laid off after being forced to train their visa holding replacement. The college
This is anti-abundance, by the way. She's blaming she's blaming the prices on the dirty capitalists. Listen, I think that there's probably something to that in different sectors and different regions, perhaps. But it's very anti-abundance bill to just blame it all on one thing. You got to build more.
college degree they were told to earn only left them in debt with no big six-figure salary. They see more homeless people than ever on their own community streets. They can't afford health insurance or practically any insurance, and they just aren't stupid. These are the people I represent and love because that is who all of my family and friends are, common Americans. I've been blessed to represent the 14th District of Georgia for 5 years. The district is filled with some of the most wonderful.
Yeah, and you don't like going to work. That's one thing that AOC said that I really appreciated, is like her insight into who's actually doing the committee work, who likes the job. People who don't like the job. John Fetterman doesn't like the job. I don't think Marjorie Taylor Greene likes the job. So she resigns, or she's going to resign. That's in case you haven't heard, she's going to resign from the Congress in January. At least she's announcing it. And yeah, like, you don't like being a congressperson. It's okay. Maybe you shouldn't have done that then. And you think this is going to be fixed by, like, just do media stuff if that's what you want to do.
Wonderful, kind-hearted, God-fearing, patriotic, hardworking people you will ever meet.
But she'll probably just want to run for a higher office.
Good, regular, common Americans. I've worked hard to bring taxpayer dollars back home to help district needs. I impeached Biden's Secretary of Homeland after watching my constituents die as he facilitated dangerous open border invasion into America.
Yeah.
And I led the effort to defund hard-left politically biased NPR and PBS and the corrupt U.S.
I really took it to Sesame Street and to Alejandro Mayorkas.
SAID, and I did that as chair of the DOJ subcommittee.
I was the head of Doge. These are all like useless things that didn't amount to anything or / were bad.
I fought harder than almost any other elected Republican to elect Donald Trump and Republicans to power. I traveled the country for years. I spent millions of my own money. I missed precious time with my family that I can never get back. And I showed up in places like outside the New York courthouse and collect.
Say what you want about this is Waterblade XX. Sorry, we're going to go after you for a little second. Just for a little second. Say what you want about Marjorie Taylor Greene, but at least she was a patriot. Fuck no. You know what's not a patriot? Trying to overturn the results of an election. Trying to undermine the Constitution. That is not what a patriot does. That is what a subversive degenerate does. No, I do not accept that Marjorie Taylor Greene was a patriot. A patriot would uphold the Constitution, not shit on it, not try to undermine our whole process. So no one should consider Marjorie Taylor Greene a patriot. She is a scumfuck degenerate traitor.
Pond Park against a raging leftist mob as Trump faced Democrat lawfare. Meanwhile, most of the establishment Republicans who secretly hate him and who stabbed him in the back and never defended him against anything have all been welcomed in right after the election. And I will never forget the day I had to leave my mother.
She's talking about Ben Shapiro. She's talking about Ben Shapiro. She's talking about the rhinos, because there's this like debate in the magosphere, like who really represents Trump. There's a faction war. You guys ever play StarCraft Brood War? You ever went and played StarCraft Brood War? The different broods are vying for control right now, and they're all claiming the mantle of the true Trump loyalists. It's remarkable. There's a foreword in, I think it's called 10 Days That Shook the World. This is the accounting by John Reed or Jack Reed on the Russian Revolution. I think it's 10 Days That Shook the World. And in the foreword, I don't think it's by John Reed, it's by someone else. He talks about how every group in the fervor of revolutionary Russia spoke in terms of socialism, spoke in terms of the people. And that oftentimes makes it confusing to go back and look at the different factions and put them in different categories, because everyone was speaking in terms of the will of the people and the, socialism and class struggle, etc., and the bourgeoisie. They were all using the same language and the same kind of frame of reference. And I view a similar kind of dynamic with the Trump brood war that's going on right now, these factional wars. They're all speaking in the as though they are representing the mantle that Trump has brought down on the Republican Party. And so you're not seeing a faction that's emerging in this war that, strictly speaking, I think is anti-MAGA. Now, there is a sense in which Fuentes will go after Trump now, right? But Fuentes goes after Trump because he hasn't stayed true to a vision, right? He identifies a core vision that was betrayed by Trump himself, but ushered in by Trump initially. So in that sense, yes, there are people who are criticizing Trump. More, to be honest, though, it's more Fuentes himself. People are less willing to do it who are creators. Fuentes really, that's one of the reasons why I think he's gaining so much popularity, is because the people have the sense that he's candid and he speaks honestly. That's their sense of it, right? And he's willing to criticize Trump openly in vicious terms sometimes. I've heard him do it. Not everyone is willing to do that, but even to the extent that that's happening, it's not because the original message or the movement was wrong. It's that there's been a strain from the message. There's been a strain from what was promised and what the core is. And that's represented in some nebulous set of propositions or ideas contained within America First, MAGA, you name it. And then this vying for who are the true mantle holders of that core. And so it is kind of funny to watch this happen while Trump is alive and in power. And also for J.D. Vance and some of the people who you think would be the most apt or most likely to literally succeed in terms of party infrastructure and power, to kind of watch from afar nervously. JD I put in that category. Now, part of that is because some of these people have jobs, unlike Marjorie Taylor Greene anymore, come January 6th. But JD, Marco Rubio, Ted Cruz, a little bit. I think Ted Cruz maybe more than others is stepping into it a little bit, engaging in the discussion a little more. But they're all kind of not directly as much engaging in this brood war.
Other side, as my father had brain surgery to remove cancerous tumors in order to fly to Washington, D.C. to defend President Trump and vote no against the Democrats' second impeachment in 2021.
So that's our patriot here. Who said this, by the way? Sorry for picking on you. Let's not forget that she's a patriot or something. Hang on. Say what you want. Waterblade. That's your patriot. She was at the bedside of her sick family members, and she raced to Congress fervently to defend Trump against a justified impeachment and disqualification. My poor father and my poor mother, it was way too much for all of us.
Through it all, I never changed or went back on my campaign promises and only disagreed in a few areas, like my stance against H-1Bs replacing American jobs, AI state moratoriums, debt for life 50-year mortgage scams, standing strongly against all involvement in foreign wars, and demanding the release of the Epstein files. Other than that, my voting record has been solidly with my party and the president. Loyalty should be a two-way street, and we should be able to vote our conscience and represent our district's interests because our job title is literally representative. America first should mean America first and only Americans first, with no other foreign country ever being attached to America first in our halls of government. Standing up for American women who were raped at 14 years old, trafficked and used by rich, powerful men should not result in me being called a traitor and threatened by the President of the United States, whom I fought for. However, while yes, hurtful, my heart...
By the way, all of us have said this and predicted it from the very beginning, that when Trump thinks it's useful, he will throw you under the bus in 2 seconds. So all of you going and fighting against him being disqualified and you going and supporting his agenda purely and everything you said, we all told you that the minute it becomes convenient for him or when he feels that you're attacking him, he will lash you out, call you a traitor, cause people to do death threats against you, and you'll be labeled as such, and you'll be a pariah. You think he cares about you? Everyone is like that. He would do it to his own family.
Heart remains filled with joy, my life is filled with happiness, and my true convictions remain
Hello.
unchanged. Because my self-worth is not defined by a man, but instead by God, who created everything in existence. You see, I have never valued...
Did he create sin? Because sin is in existence. So if he created everything, then by definition he created sin. These religious debates.
Power, titles, or attention, in spite of all the wrong assumptions about me. I do not cling to those things because they are meaningless and empty traps that hold too many people in Washington. I believe in term limits and do not think Congress should be a lifelong career or an assisted...
You ran for a 2-year term, Congresswoman. You ran to your constituents for 2 years. And now you're not finishing the term that you ran on because Trump called you a bad name. You didn't have to run again. You could have said, I'm not going to run again. But your constituents trusted you to be on the line in the ways that you're describing for 2 years. And you couldn't do it. You couldn't finish it out. You ran for it, so don't make this about term limits.
living facility. My only goal and desire has ever been to hold the Republican Party accountable for the promises it makes to the American people and put America first. And I have fought against Democrats' damaging policies like the Green New Deal,
Rubio.
wide open...
Rubio. Have a look for Rubio. Where's your shit, Rubes? There's a new tweet. What the hell? Maybe it's under his other alias. Uh-huh. The proposal was authored by the U.S. It is offered as a strong framework for ongoing negotiations. So a framework for ongoing negotiations. Okay. It's based on input from the Russian side. But is also based on previous and ongoing input from Ukraine. Dude. Translating a document from Russian into English doesn't mean you authored it, dude. So, in substance, what we want to know is, whose points are these? Does America agree with the framework? If it's America's framework, do we agree with it? What a scumfuck loser. I can't believe this guy thinks that this is gonna... What is this gonna do for him? He's soured any credibility he's ever had, which I think is none. You're not saying whether America thinks it's good, whether America recommends it, whether you're encouraging Ukraine to accept it. If you're taking American authorship of it, wouldn't you encourage Ukraine to take it? then why are you calling these senators and telling them that this is Russia's input? Because it became a scandal, and so now you're lying. Dude, these guys are sick. They are sick people. Totally soulless.
And deadly unsafe border policies and the trans agenda on children and against women. With that has brought years.
The trans agenda. And Cenk watched this and he's like, Congresswoman, please stay and fight. Like, Cenk is hearing all this and saying, please continue.
Years of non-stop, never-ending personal attacks, death threats, lawfare, ridiculous slander and lies about me that most people could never withstand even for a single day.
You couldn't stand Trump coming at you one time and you resigned. And you're going to talk about who has a backbone? He came after you one time. One guy, one time, and you couldn't stomach it. And you resigned. Most people wouldn't. Give me a break. Give me a break. Random ethics question. Is private law a moral hazard? I don't understand what that question means. I guess I don't know what private law is.
It has been unfair and wrong, not
Thank
only
you for
to
Super
me,
Chat.
but especially to my family. But it's been wrong to my district as well. I have too much self-respect and dignity. I love my family way too much, and I do not want my sweet district.
We know you respect yourself and you love yourself. My sweet district. The way she talks about our district. My sweet innocent district.
Self-respect and dignity. I love my family way too much, and I do not want my sweet district to have to endure a hurtful and hateful primary against me by the president that we all fought for, only to fight and win my election while Republicans.
You guys have been encouraging these kinds of primaries across the country for anyone who would step out of line and vote their conscience on any number of things, which, you know what? All power to everybody. I call for primaries. That's part of the political arena. That's part of the calculus. We call for primaries. I think that you guys call for primaries on garbage bullshit, but you guys do it. And now you're like, I don't want my sweet little district to. Come on. Who's buying this?
Will likely lose the midterms, and in turn be expected to defend the president against impeachment after he.
This, I think, is good for Dems in the short term. In the short term, this kind of doomerism, I think, helps Democrats. If Republicans think it's all over, then I think that promotes potentially Democratic enthusiasm. Although, that's a vibe. I can't prove that. But everyone, all these Republicans seem to be doomer pilled, and so I think that there'll be more scattershot and less unified in their efforts. Because the kind of doomerism isn't coming from like polls; it's coming from the top leaders and stuff, and I think that will encourage them to like resign, not participate, or in other ways try to buck the national environment.
Hatefully dumped tens of millions of dollars against me and tried to destroy me. It's
Try to
all
destroy
so
me.
Absurd and
It's
completely
so
unserious.
absurd.
I refuse to be a battered wife, hoping it all goes away and gets better.
She is comparing the treatment that she has received, and maybe it's apt. You guys tell me. She's comparing her treatment at the hands of Trump, who she has encouraged for years, who she created, or helped create the second term in the sense of messaging, who she has backed all the way, and her decision to vote for the Epstein files and the subsequent fallout from that as that of a physically abused, battered woman. You guys tell me if you think that that's an apt comparison. Maybe because you guys are all the Republican, like, it actually doesn't strike me as too, in terms of the emotional isolation and abuse that you get if you don't fall in line with Trump. Maybe there's some similarities there. But if that's true, then like, how sad.
Better. If I am cast aside by the president and the MAGA political machine and replaced by neocons, big pharma, big tech, military-industrial war complex, foreign leaders, and the elite donor class that
all right, that's that's why Chang signed up.
Can never ever relate to real Americans, then many common Americans have been cast aside and replaced as well. There is no plan to save the world or a 4D chess game being played. When common American people realize and understand that the political industrial complex of both parties is ripping this country apart, that not one elected leader like me is able to stop Washington's machine from gradually destroying our country. And instead, the reality is that they, common Americans, the people, possess the real power over Washington.
Maybe just how media portrays big corporate lawyers, but it seems like law can be pay to win. I'm curious if you ever considered banning private practice. No, really no. I think that's a bad idea. I don't really see it as a moral hazard. I mean, there are some that are potentially moral hazards when it comes to certain kinds of practice, where it really does seem like it generates perverse incentives. But it happens on even things that are more commonly associated with like liberal left-wing causes. There are some perverse incentives for plaintiffs' attorneys and stuff. But I always think when those issues come up, it's a problem of the government and regulation. I kind of view the actions of the law firms as downstream. I view these firms and a lot of these corporations beyond just law firms. This is also true, I think, of like private banking and investment banking, this kind of thing, that they're just machines, right? They're machines that are filling an evolutionary niche. And the issue, sometimes there's egregious conduct that goes beyond what I think is, existing in an evolutionary niche. But if the system allows for that stuff, tax is another great example, then the problem is the people who are in control of making those niches. And I think that making all the practice of law just public has all of the problems that we're seeing now for everything that touches the government, right? Like if everyone is employed by the government, then if you have a demagogue who's in charge of the government, it's just like one less bottleneck, right? Or sorry, one more bottleneck that they can utilize to their own ends. And so you got to be very careful. I think the way to address moral hazards, investing when it's a problem, and potentially like bad litigious decisions is usually to create some kind of solution that addresses the niche. And inherently, there's almost always going to be a big benefit to just being rich. And that's just something that we have to acknowledge. You can do things, I think, to mitigate it, but it is tough to be like, okay, the law shall be pure. You will not get benefit by having good lawyers, and good lawyers should not be able to sell their services at a higher fee than others, and you should not be able to get multiple lawyers if you have more money for it. So it's like, I get where people are coming from on that, but I do think that we need to acknowledge that there's always going to be some benefit to being rich and to having more resources, and that's, I think, pointless and futile to try to like totally avoid that, and that some of these kind of moral hazards need to be met upstream, not just like yelling at corporations, which are just like robots. It can actually be illegal sometimes for corporations not to maximize shareholder value. Like, you can be violating your fiduciary duty if you just like, okay, you know what? Let's just make less profit. We don't need all this profit. We're just going to minimize our profit relative to some other social aim. That can sometimes, you're violating your duty of good faith and loyalty to your shareholders and stuff, right? So depending, right? Like everything I'm saying, 1,000 caveats, 1,000 exceptions. I'm just basically suggesting that the way that a lot of these corporations are run, it's not a big mystery why they do the things they do. Law firms, similarly, right? Ultimately, law firms are sustained on fees for legal services. And if there's some benefit that good lawyering and a good team can get you, and filing certain motions can get you, then yeah, you're gonna seek it out. And sometimes there are incentives that go the other way too. Sometimes there's incentives for big corporations to settle, even when the case isn't so strong. Or some of the, for example, like the anti-discrimination frameworks. I know that like there are some cases that are not good cases that are brought by plaintiffs' firms that extract value from these corporations, where it kind of even sometimes feels unjust. So it's about, I think, balancing that. But I think some of these radical solutions, like reform tort, get rid of all tort law, and get rid of all private attorneys, I think they go too far. Let's finish this.
Then I'll be here by their side to rebuild it. Until then, I'm going back to the people that I love to live my life to the fullest as I always have, and I look forward to a new path ahead.
A new path ahead. Like what? You're going to be on The View? Thank you so much for following Twitch. Loser pays. I mean, there's fee shifting provisions, and some of the problems with the incentives, right? The moral hazards potentially have these fee shifting provisions that give attorneys fees. You can make an argument both ways, right? Like, does fee shifting give an undue benefit to plaintiffs' attorneys' firms to extract value from defendants? But sometimes the fee shifting can go both ways. Does it unduly chill litigation? So you have to realize, like, a lot of this, the system, the legal system that we set up, it's not always clear who's the good guy and the bad guy, just in the context of who's the plaintiff, who's the defendant. And something you do like fee shifting, that could have unintended consequences. And the American rule traditionally is that you pay for your own legal expenses. Winner goes bankrupt, loser wins. Okay. Anyway, let's talk about
resigning from office,
Yeah,
with my last
resigning.
day being January 5th, 2026. And I look forward to seeing many of you again sometime in the future. May God bless you all.
Okay, cool. Anyway, I want to talk about Cenk for a little bit. I just really, really despise that Cenk and TYT seems to consider people like Marjorie Taylor Greene and Nick Fuentes and all these other guys who are trying to ride that train as like proximate allies in the fight to unify with. I'm sure some of you saw this clip from Fuentes himself where he's like, we should totally make alliances with populist left. Fuck out of here. I don't know why we're humoring this. These guys are scum. Scum. They were going to sell your country down the river to MAGA, and now they're upset with the results of their own decisions. What they wrought on this country. They have no judgment, and they don't have the right grounding. That we don't share a worldview, like the precepts say. We don't share our vision for this country. They don't give a shit about what you ought to give a shit about. What we should care about is preserving our Constitution, our republic, our way of life, and then also making the lives of our people better. We're going to break bread with these fucking pseudo-Nazis. I mean, they're definitionally anti-Semitic as well. Not in the way where we're criticizing Israel, but they are. They have hateful views of people. They suck. Now, fuck Ben Shapiro. Fuck them all. We don't need them. We don't need them. Create a unique vision. A unique vision where the vast majority of the country, I think, will step behind you. If you just make people's lives better and you defend the Constitution. But we don't need this shit. This bitch is a QAnoner who now she's trying to make a lane for herself after how many lies she told, how many people she's demeaned, how much corruption she has stood by and defended. We don't need this shit. On a vote, great. If they're in Congress and they want to vote for your shit, whatever. You want to stand by them at a press conference while they're the letter fucking monologue while she's giving you a key vote, that's one thing. But a coalition, get out of here. No. And trying to look at what she's saying. I would have never imagined saying this, but don't go. Stay and fight. Stay and fight what? Stay and fight what? She's not going to fight Trump on the stuff that matters. The Epstein stuff, that's done. And I'm going to say something I don't want to ruin a good time or to make you guys sad. I guess you'd be sad if you figured this out. But the likelihood that what's going on with the Epstein story is what you've been sold by so many people, including, by the way, TYT, is low. There's no basis to believe that this criminal and reprehensible activity from Epstein and associates extends in the way that they allege it does to intelligence agencies and to like a larger circle than maybe a few other people in terms of elites. There just isn't. I would tell you if there was. What's most gross is them covering up and lying. And my guess is there's stuff that's horrible and embarrassing in there for a bunch of people, but not the narrative that's being sold to you. So am I happy that Marjorie Taylor Greene voted to release the files? Although keep in mind, we read the law the other day and there's a lot of exceptions and a lot of carve-outs that the executive can take advantage of legally. Yeah, I'm happy about it, but does it justify breaking bread with these people in that sense? No. Not in a long-term strategy when we're talking about things that actually matter beyond the cover-up. When we're talking about like prices and the structure of our government and healthcare, trade policy. We don't need these brainless, sub-IQ, race realist, Christian nationalists. We don't need them. I challenge Marjorie Taylor Greene to a debate on whether she should stay or leave Congress. I'll take the side that says she should stay anytime, anyplace. Marge. End me. Seeing this pig, Randy Fine, and this guy's a piece of shit, Randy Fine. He's a humongous piece of shit. Celebrate is reason enough for me to be furious about Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene's decision. No way she should leave and he should stay. For all my disagreements with Marjorie Taylor Greene, at least she was an American and cared about America. She did not. Almost all we have left are Congress people from Tel Aviv. Are you shitting me with that? You view MAGA being pressured. Thank you so much for the super chat. Thank you guys for support. Being pressured from their right flank, good or bad, seems like a risky gambit. I think it's really risky. It could be really good short term, but really bad long. Yeah, that's kind of my view. My view is I think Democrats can take advantage of this discord and really get some benefit out of it. But I am not comfortable. Like, people don't realize how short-sighted it can be to underestimate your opponent. So don't underestimate Fuentes. I have judged and considered that he's on the ascendancy and has been for some time. I've watched his show for a while. I listen to what he says. I see how he's growing. That's been my assessment. Almost all we have left are Congress people from Tel Aviv. That is a wild statement to make, especially because I know some of the representatives that he will castigate this way, and I couldn't disagree more. But she didn't care about America. She didn't care about America when the chips were down. When Trump was destroying our country, destroying these agencies that we passed by law that did good things. Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, Department of Ed, USAID, because I think USAID actually helps Americans. It's insurance, it's credibility for American State Department. It gets good relations and good benefits for America. It's not just, there's a reason why like China does Belt and Road Initiative. There's a reason why Russia goes, like, it's not just because they want to help other countries. But even if you view more myopically, she was willing to throw our entire country into the bus for her political beliefs. Yeah, she didn't give a shit when they attacked the Capitol. She said in her video, one of her proudest moments was going to protect Trump. And then more Epstein stuff. Anyway, I'm kind of like, I'm just tired, man. I'm tired of this whitewashing. We should be honest about like the Shapiros of the world, and they suck. But there's another way, dear viewer. We don't need to accept these freaks. Okay. There's also, now that we saw one side of the political divide, apparently Trump retruthed this Mark Levin.
I get tired of these criticisms of the president. You know, you're focused too much on foreign policy, not enough on domestic policy. What are they talking about? This guy's got hundreds of executive orders, reversing regulations, tax cuts, the border, on and on. I said, you know what? Last Saturday, I explained on this issue of affordability that blue states are unaffordable and red states are affordable. And Republicans need to run on that. But what about the people in these states, Mark? What about it? The president of the United States is president of the United States. He's not running the local pizzeria. He's not running the local grocery store and all the rest of it. There are things he can do and things he can't do.
He promised, douchebag. So Trump is retruthing this or whatever. He's basically saying, it's not our fault. It's just the Democrat places those are the ones that are hard to live in. And he goes, oh, well, there's things you can't do. Then don't run on it. Why lie? This guy is such a scumfuck. All of them. They all deserve each other. They should all have your contempt. Every single one of these motherfuckers. So now he's like, oh, what can Trump do? He doesn't control the pizzeria. Like fucking, you said that about Biden. Biden doesn't control the eggplant.
But there are
I don't mean the egg. I mean the plant where they make eggs.
things he's doing like we've never seen before. I think he's doing more than FDR ever did at the height of the New Deal.
He's doing more things than what FDR did. I mean, like, I guess in a way of saying, like, if do things is just like the amount of brain activity or literal steps you take in a day, or like, what are you talking about with do more things? Is destroying the government doing more things? I guess I don't know about that. He's certainly less ambitious in the sense of building things. He's certainly more ambitious in the sense of destroying things.
And it's only 8-9 months in. Let's look at this. He is the general.
The general.
The culture war,
He's basically just sucking Trump off because he knows Trump is looking. So this is a fight for Trump's like an ounce of his attention span. And so he is trying to be the biggest glazer of Trump, so Trump listens to him on whatever it is that he wants.
General in making domestic.
This is also the Mike Huckabee strategy. Did you guys see that? Wait, I kind of want to read this out loud. This was on the eve of the bombing of Iran. Do you guys remember this letter? One sec. Or was it a text? Mike Huckabee text. Yeah, he'd be doing things. He'd be doing many things, the best things. Oh, yeah, here we go. So this is the Mike Huckabee strategy. He goes, this is the text from Huckabee to Trump. Mr. President, God spared you in Butler, Pennsylvania to be the most consequential president in a century, maybe ever. The decisions on your shoulders I would not want to be made by anyone else. You have many voices speaking to you, sir, but there is only one voice that matters, sir, capitalized, his voice. I am your appointed servant in this land and am available to you, for you, but I do not try to get in your presence often because I trust your instincts. No president in my lifetime has been in a position like yours, not since Truman in 1945, pre-bombing Japan. So that was the pre-Iran bombing, and so that's these people are openly manipulating Trump, and that's their strat, is to just glaze him and be like, you're like Truman. I don't reach out to persuade you, only to encourage you. I believe you will hear from heaven, and that voice is far more important than mine or anyone else's. This is our ambassador to Israel, by the way. This is our ambassador to Israel. Our ambassador to Israel is this guy. You sent me to Israel to be your eyes, ears, and voice, and to make sure our flag flies above our embassy. My job is to be the last one to leave. I will not abandon this post. Our flag will not come down. Like, dude, you did not seek this moment. This moment sought you. It is my honor to serve you, Mike Huckabee. Like, that's these guys' strat. And I think that's why it's ultimately a failed strat. The strat of let's just glaze Trump maximally only works so much as Trump, A, has the base under his control, and B, is actually in power, or C, is not dead or stroked out. And so it's not a long-term strat. The long-term strat is being the next intellectual or ideological or political force of the Republicans and of the conservative movement in the country. Can we watch Huckabee's guitar solo? No solo. So, like, I appreciate the glaze game here. That these guys are, like, licking Trump's sniz. But it's so apparent, and I think it's ultimately a losing strategy. But what do they have left? You think Mark Levin and Huckabee are going to be able to convince the burgeoning conservative movement that they're the stewards of Trump's movement? No.
Drastic moves that no president has made, certainly not in our lifetime. And what am I talking about? He's defunding DEI. He's removing it from federal policy. And he's
defunding DEI? Does that just mean firing black people? Like, I don't even know what that means, defunding DEI.
Removing it from state and local policy and colleges and universities that receive federal funds.
Yeah, so like using the federal government as and this, like, the first thing he's talking about are the adjacent policies to coercing institutions into like cracking down on anti-Israel conversations. That's like their new DI stuff, is anti-Israel is anti-DI. Additionally, trying to institute like speech monitors and speech codes into the various different universities. And in also, by the way, the private sector when it comes to corporations and these kinds of people.
He's depoliticizing the left-wing anti-American rewrite of our founding and history that's taking place in federally funded museums.
This is eliminating references to like slavery. That's helping a lot.
National parks, which
maybe that's why Ryan Mullally and Gen Z attorney were willing to have that debate. They forgot that America had slaves.
Promoting hard left ideology. He's removing left-wing directives that were coming out of our education department to local school districts, K through 12 classes. He's doing the same thing. He's fighting hard when it comes to higher education. In fact, he's dismantling the Department of Education, something.
This is good. This is all. This is good.
That President Reagan wanted to do desperately, and he was blocked by who? The Republicans in the Senate. Trump.
He was a bozo. He should have just like done it. The thing is, Reagan, he probably would have had to actually have a court to like deal with courts that cared about the rule of law. Sorry, I say courts. We do have courts that care about the rule of law. A Supreme Court that cares about the rule of law.
He's doing it with the help of his excellent education secretary. He's promoting school choice like no
Linda
president
McMahon.
in American history. Options, particularly for poor people, particularly for poor minorities.
Poor people and poor minorities. These are the same people, by the way, who, because Mamdani said white neighborhoods and like one little policy platform or whatever. And I think Mamdani kind of referenced this, and I didn't see the whole interaction with Trump in the White House, if I'm being honest with you. How do you call in? Go into disagreements. Call in. Go into disagreements, you you piece of garbage. All right, beat. Let's keep listening.
He's withholding federal education funds for leftist agendas, indoctrination.
So he's using federal funds, withholding them politically. He's withholding funds politically.
Being pushed in our schools.
Which means anti-Israel.
He is fighting hard, and again, using federal dollars as a whip to prevent men.
So he is politically using the federal power to prevent men from something about trans.
From going into women's sports.
Okay.
Boys from going into girls' sports. That was supposed to be protected under Title IX of the Civil Rights Act. He has defunded PBS, a left-wing operation. He has defunded NPR, a left-wing operation. And why do we need him? You got 1,200 channels on cable, and you got hundreds and hundreds and thousands of stations on radio. If they're that great, let them get private funding. He has locked down the border. Literally locked down the border. He's enforcing immigration laws against Democrat mayors, Democrat governors, who are the new Confederates, who are trying to nullify federal law. He's trying to deport illegal aliens, especially.
All right, there's a Discord. Discord is a service, website, app. You join a Discord. If you join a Discord, there's many different channels. And in these channels, some of which are voice, It'll be a label next to them. In my specific Discord called the Piscord, you'll see there's a channel called Extreme Disagreements.
The worst of the worst. He's appointing originalists to the federal bench to try and counter what Biden did, which is basically destroy the judiciary with activist left-wing lawyers. He's rebuilding America's infrastructure and industrial base through tax cuts, regulation cuts, and yes, tariffs. And by the way, his tax cuts are for all Americans, including on tips, Social Security benefits, overtime, middle-class income earners, and small businesses. What else? Revolutionary changes over there at the Department of HHS, in our federal health agencies, extensive reform of welfare programs, including expanding work requirements, major overhaul of the student loan programs, including...
Whenever you hear overhaul or like major changes and just translate that into bad, making things bad and worse and hateful and for no reason, vindictive and ugly. That's what everything he touches is like that. I can't think of a positive reform. Maybe like stopping minting pennies, but I even think he did that illegally, and so maybe I wouldn't even give him credit for that.
Capping them. A complete overhaul of radical left-wing degrowth environmental rules over at the EPA, massive expansion
Abundance build Mark Levin
of domestic energy production, including opening more land for drilling, speeding up permitting for energy projects, reevaluating or rescinding regulations seen as burdensome to domestic energy production. His administration has recently issued executive orders, signed legislation, provided financial support aimed at significant expansion of U.S. nuclear capacity. I think this is one of the great answers to energy in the United States of America. He's authorizing mining for all materials, especially rare earth materials, and we see it bearing fruit in Alaska.
His show is called Life, Liberty, and Levin.
And in Pennsylvania.
That's almost as good a name as Word War Debate. By the way, shout out Word War Debate. They followed me on Twitter. Let me just confirm that. Word War. Oh, wait, did they? They didn't. Oh, they liked my tweet. Oh. Well, I'm going to follow them. I'm going to follow Word War Debate. That was fake news.
Yeah. Including expediting permitting, prioritizing mineral extraction on federal land.
This guy, he really does have anti-riz. I don't know why he like has a show. I don't know who's like, I'm going to turn on Mark Levin.
As well as using the Defense Production Act to fund projects and reduce dependence on foreign sources like China. He's consistently promoting policies aimed at massively expanding U.S. artificial intelligence. He's got the commitment of investments of trillions of dollars in this, so we stay ahead of China. Because this is the new frontier.
I liked it when that guy was like, you invented the word China.
Or not. And technology growth through deregulation, increased R&D investment, public-private partnerships, workforce training. Mark, where'd you get it? I pulled it off the internet. I looked at all these different sites, pulled it together, and said, what do they mean he's not focusing on domestic activities? Are you kidding me? He's expanding U.S. timber production on federal lands. He's streamlining permitting processes. He's reduced regulations with a goal of a 25% increase in production. These actions were aimed at cutting red tape, expediting logging, salvaging operations, purportedly to reduce wildlife risks and boost the domestic industry. Hey, Newscomb, you could learn something from this. Pay attention. Reducing regulation.
These guys are such boomers.
And opening previously protected areas to commercial fishing.
By the way, this is what that judge who issued the dissent in the in the Texas case. Oh, by the way, guys, don't freak out. Like the Trump administration, SCOTUS, what's the difference? Will probably make up some bullshit for undoing the Texas decision on the redistricting, which I think is garbage, but you don't get that indication from the Alito administrative stay. It's an administrative stay, all right? You get me? All right, I don't know who was trying to get in Extreme Disagreements, but I don't see you yet. So if you're having tech problems, just let me know.
Aiming to boost the domestic economy and compete with foreign imports of fish? What about farming? Enhancing farming. The enhanced crop insurance.
He's making things better. He's not making them worse. He's making them better. He's enhancing them.
Expedited and expanded disaster assistance, market access and trade deals with countries in Asia and Western Hemisphere, particularly China. Aiming to remove tariff and non-tariff barriers and expand market access for U.S. agricultural products.
Looking to eliminate tariffs? I love that, by the way. Just a minute ago, you were like, yes, he's expanding tariffs. And I was like, and he's looking to eliminate tariffs. He's eliminated tariffs recently on stuff that he's implemented, on tariffs that he's actually started. You're giving him credit for reducing tariffs and non-trade barriers that he himself implemented. Doesn't really matter. They're catering to specifically 60 and 70-year-olds in shared home situations and angry boomers who can't turn off the television.
Overseas, like ethanol, soybeans, poultry, deregulating the agriculture industry, and overturning climate-related regulations that lower farmer input costs. Even the cost of fertilizer was prohibitive. Now he's bringing it down.
He's bringing it down.
He's expanding ranching, primarily by increasing access to federal grazing land, expanded grazing access, financial support with more government-guaranteed loans, and expand access to capital for producers, predator compensation for livestock. You know, we've been protecting predator species for forever, and obviously it has an effect on the livestock, increasing funding for small meat processors, reduction of inspection fees, because he wants more production. Remove unfair tariff and non-tariff barriers and create fair and reciprocal trade.
Wait, isn't he just... Did he just have a little senior moment? Didn't he just say this?
Expanding opportunities for U.S. exports. That's what's meant by reciprocal trade deals when he talks about them. Non-tariff barriers and create fair producers, predator compensation for livestock. You know, we've been protecting predator species for forever.
I think he just repeated
himself. It
himself.
has an effect on the livestock.
This is like national news.
Increasing funding for small meat processors, reduction of inspection fees, because he wants more production. Remove unfair tariff and non-tariff barriers and create fair and reciprocal trade.
Yeah, holy shit.
Expanding opportunities for U.S. exports. That's what's meant by reciprocal trade deals when he talks about them. He's pursued various actions aimed at lowering medical and prescription drug costs through executive orders, price transparency rules, and voluntary pricing agreements.
And reducing Medicaid for everyone, but not now, later on, you know.
With manufacturers, capping out-of-pocket insulin costs for participating Medicaid.
That's what Biden did. Trump did a smaller version of it, a much, much, much worse, less expansive version than what Biden did. And you're giving him credit. These are talking points on the campaign trail.
Beneficiaries at no more than $35.
They're recycling shit.
Dollars a month for a month's supply. Initiatives at the Food and Drug Administration to speed up the approval of lower-cost generic medicines and biosimilars, which are often significantly cheaper than the brand name alternatives. States can now...
Okay, I can't even handle 2 seconds of that. We just did 7 minutes. It is impossible to listen to this dude. This dude is not going to win a culture war with the Republican Party. These kinds of people are not anywhere close to able to fight off the Groyper onslaught. Which is why I'm a little doomer-pilled about it. They don't have anything but Trump holding off the turn to an even worse, I think, more noxious version of American xenophobia and Christian nationalism. And they have nothing. Nothing ideologically. They're bankrupt ideologically. They're bankrupt morally. They're bankrupt in terms of values. And so they're losing because these are their standard bearers. And my guess is that Marjorie Taylor Greene, with support from even some left-wing groups, is planning for that future. A long-term play. What can you do? All right, we are now open for stream disagreements. I've gotten through, I think, the things I wanted to talk about. Is there anything else I wanted to talk about? So if there are people who want to chat, feel free. Let me go full screen for you guys. Green grass turns brown. Rage quits, yeah. Mr. Mandela Effect says, thank you so much for the bits. You're saying Mark Levin doesn't have the cards? I don't think he has. He doesn't have any of the cards. We have the cards. The Democrats have the blueprint in Zorin. If they don't capitalize on disillusioned MAGA and allow them to walk perfectly over the Fuentes types, GG. Yeah, I mean, like, I just think that they need people who, regardless of the ideological message, and I do think, unfortunately, this is because I think it's like ultimately substanceless garbage, the populist rhetoric aspect to it. I think that does involve some level of populism, but they have to just be super competent when they get into power. Can't be any more mistakes. Hate is unproductive and increases social weakness. I think so. Yeah. Do people really think that Zoran Trump meeting was a good thing for Zoran? I don't know. It felt a little weird. I don't really. So for me, what I hate is when people go meet with Trump and then like either dick ride or be like very accommodating or act cringe. Do I think that, I mean, like, am I gonna fault a political leader for meeting the president? No. The alleged president. Mr. Mandela says, Zoran's message is so good the right wing is pretending to abandon racism to try and embrace it. Doobie says, unfortunately, I think Tucker's current brand of conservatism is the only thing that stands a chance against the glorification of young Republicans. Levin and Shapiro have labeled him a Nazi too. Oh, so you kind of see Tucker in his own category, like Megyn Kelly Tucker, who kind of, in a kind of appeasing sense. Tucker still, I would say, is the biggest right-wing influencer, right-wing person in the news. You see Prime on Wick's channel the other day? I watched part of that debate, but it honestly was, I thought it would be a little bit more fiery. But how are you guys doing? We need our Carney. Yeah, the people they want all the answers in a paragraph. Mark Carney was, what a turnaround, huh, though, for the libs in Canada. Common Good kind of disagrees with Doobie a little bit, says Tucker, Fuentes, Marjorie Taylor Greene are all lining up. They're even doing language mimicking. I am noticing some of the language mimicking, even among the, in the Marjorie Taylor speech that we just listened to. I signed up for America First. That emphasis, right? As opposed to MAGA. Andrew Wilson is fluffing Fuentes now. Doobie says, yeah, I think he does a great job challenging Nick on religious grounds, and that could pull people away from the outright racial, ethnic bigotry Nick pushes. I think that Nick, but also like recently has been less emphasis on the racial aspect. He's like, wouldn't it be great if Ro Khanna and not, I don't think that he's like changing, but I think he is trying to center his sights on the anti-Israel angle. But I don't think that that's like indicative necessarily that he is no longer race conscious or that he claims to be. Just that I think he's willing to make alliances and he's aware of power and he's aware of the need to have a message that is in some sense more unifying. All right, we have Magma. So I'm sure we're going to be talking about Jesus. So if you hate Jesus, now's the time. Yo, what up, Magma?
Hey, how's it going? Thank you for having me.
It's going well. Just give me 1 second. I did see Trump's new outfit. It was funny when it showed. Anyway,
Show.
How are you? We talked the other day
fine.
about Jesus and sin, and you're a Christian.
Yeah. We got a little redirected, but sorry, I cut you off.
No. I'm basically just introducing who you are, and so yeah. Talk to me. What are your thoughts? I have more questions.
Thank you. My name's Eli, or Magma. That's my handle. Whatever you want to call me. So I intended last time for the conversation to go a little more in like debate prep, because that's like my sphere, is I'm a big debate bro, one of a fan that's been bouncing around all the different communities for a long time. And as someone who was a Christian for a long time in kind of like the traditional normal way, it was a big shock to really break into a bunch of Christian college courses and a lot of Christian literature that is meant for like not the people sitting in the pews, and it was almost completely incongruent and none of it preached, and it was very interesting to break into it. So that kind of like put me down this whole path of redirecting and realizing how kind of entirely screwy the American Christianity and the Western culture around it is, but specifically with the Andrew Wilson thing, I was hoping to come in and give like just a point or two of like his own incongruency and his own point being nowhere in the entire Bible, and this is to the point of Christian nationalism, does anybody say that there should be a Christian nation or that Christian ethics should be enforced across populations. Like, that is specifically discouraged. So, like, the fact that these people, like, this is a central core of their argument, and like, it is repeatedly discouraged in almost every book in the New Testament of like discouraging those people who are like ultra into enforcing law in that, because like Jesus's whole like point, or one of his big rambles to the people who were super about law in that time was, woe to you, the people who are like way into like this, who measure out the exact portions when you're giving away food to the poor. Like, the whole point is your intentions behind it. You people are obsessed with what's written on paper. And like, that was a big core of it. But yeah, so I was just kind of, that was my intention last time before we go wherever you'd like to go, was just being like, I would like to see someone in your debate style, which I'm a big fan of like grilling people, of like, where in the Bible do you see anybody, especially Jesus, advocating for you enforcing your ethics on anybody? If you're like if you're personally convicted about something, like, that is something that's supposed to be between you and God, and like maybe your social circle if it's involving like apologizing to them. But like, yeah, in like the Christian worldview as like how it's supposed to be, or what the tradition was as of hundreds of years ago before it kind of got polluted in the late Middle Ages, Enlightenment, and then the Jesus booms of the 18 and 1900s, where it was all about fire and brimstone and avoiding hell. That kind of led us to this now like white nationalist, Christian nationalist, race realist world where there isn't a big difference between the two things. But yeah, no, that's what I wanted to get into last time. We kind of got sidetracked, but whatever you'd like to talk about, whether debate prep or the problem of evil and Christian ethics, or what I believe versus what they believe, anything, or I can get out of your hair, whatever works.
So let's take another 10 minutes. I see someone else on in disagreements as well, but I want to respond to what you just said. So first off is like the notion that you wish that someone would, from the Christian worldview or from his starting set of principles, argue against this kind of political and religious, or the assumption, I guess, that religion should play a role in politics.
Yeah, Jesus specifically states that the kingdom of heaven, which is what like he's there to bring, like he's like, this is my purpose, is to bring about a kingdom of heaven that is not a kingdom of borders. It is not a kingdom of land. It is a kingdom of souls and relationships. But that's not exactly his words. But yeah. And so like the idea of enforcing Christian ethics across a border and a land and like all this stuff is antithetical. And I just wish someone would say something like that if you ever are in front of Andrew. I think that'd be awesome.
Yeah, I guess I'm not as one. The reason why I don't take that approach, and the first I think is because it requires me to be something. I don't know if I need to be a biblical scholar, but I think I would need to know a significant amount to be able to say something like, the Bible doesn't says this. I would need to have some kind of what is it, hermeneutic? I don't even know what the term is for these.
Different. There's all sorts of different ones, but it would be like Old Testament versus New Testament studies, and like the core, basically, New Testament theology and the relationship with Jesus.
Right, and I would have to be like comfortable playing. I don't know. I think some of these people probably read the Bible less than they say they do.
They've never opened the book. Like, that's my impression. Like, I think that someone coming with 2 Bible verses being like, hey, you say you believe this, like, even from a cynical point of view, would be world melting based on like what they say the Bible says.
Sure, but I'm just saying
but no, and I'm not saying that. Sorry, go ahead.
I'm explaining why I think that it's like not fruitful. One of the reasons is that I don't trust myself to know the Bible better than these people who claim to know the Bible.
That makes sense.
I just don't think I need to, because suppose that there were like a really good passage that said that Christians ought be in politics. I think I'm more comfortable like arguing against the whole worldview than I am against arguing that the worldview necessitates a particular thing of politics, especially because these guys are all interpreting it anyway, and they're all kind of like, they all have their own style of interpretation anyway, and like and they all presuppose that they're correct anyway. And so if I'm going to do this kind of thing, I just feel like it's it's better if they're really pushing on the foundation of morality, just to question the notion that they're trying to impose an objective morality in the first place, or point to the inherent contradictions in the worldview, which I think are many, and in which I think you ought to think about.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that is that's a central point, and a very good one. Is the whole the I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Could
No,
you
no
repeat the
worries.
last
Yeah,
thing you
yeah,
said?
no.
Just that last little bit at the end there.
Yeah, basically that I'd rather, if they're going to push the conversation to a place of like a foundational, so they could argue, for example, that a Christian theocracy would produce the best results. And I'll say, no, it wouldn't, because look at, like, it'll be corrupt. It'll lead to this result for people. Like, people should have freedoms. And then they're just going to be like, wait, well, hang on. I define what good is as more aligned with in God's will or God's plan or something, right?
Yeah, thank you.
And so if they were to get me there, and so then I'm like, okay, so I'm not appealing to people's kind of like intuitive results-based view of like what good is. It's some other notion of good. If they get me there, then I don't want to grant that the good is, like, I guess I could do an internal critique of their own biblical study, but I feel like the better approach is just to say, on your view, there are contradictions in what the good is, and you're in no better standing to say X versus me if you really want to do this kind of like, I trump you because I'm objective and you're not objective. And so that's where I feel more comfortable than basically devoting my life next 5 months to being incredibly well read, people who devote their entire life to biblical study,
of course.
And to try to claim that I actually have the religious reading
and
correct.
I remember my point now. It was the point of subjective versus objective morality, and my point of the Bible doesn't make it that clear. Like, it already isn't that clear in the Bible itself. There is no, like, there's an objectively wrong answer for you personally as someone with choices in front of you, but the idea that choices and actions in themselves are evil or good, and that's like a fact that is based in the action, not in the intention behind the action, is absurdity. Like, that is non-biblical. And so I would say that is a huge part of their thing, is like the act of XYZ, like this thing is sin, and that labeling is a big part of what I was trying to push against last time. This is a big thing that Jesus emphasizes, is the intentions behind your actions are so much more applicable to the situation of like what God cares about, I guess, is what he's trying to convey.
How do you know? I mean, like, what if he said, how do you know?
Says, yeah.
Well, okay, but how do you know that you're interpreting it correctly? Yeah. I mean, you can pull up a verse, but I think, like, what gives you the authority to interpret conclusively what Jesus meant or what God meant? Just real quick, thank you so much, Doobie.
That is the question.
Doobie, for the $50 super chat. Therefore, go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, and teaching them to obey everything I have commanded you. And surely I am with you always to the very end of the age. I'm assuming that's a Bible quote intended to like contradict your whatever. I'm not saying that it is.
I understand what they were trying to say. Yeah, no, I understand. They were trying to say the point about teaching them to obey. That absolutely, obedience is greater than sacrifice. Big part of the Bible is like obeying what Jesus says is hugely important and the entire purpose. But I think that the entire purpose of the Holy Spirit and the belief that you have like a divine insight into something bigger than yourself when you accept Jesus, which is like the whole purpose of the Holy Spirit and that being in your life and the aspect of the Trinity, is that you now can like have a little insight of like, hey, don't do this, hey, do this. That is the point of it, and that you have like something bigger than yourself inside of you.
Here's what I imagine Doobie would respond to that and say, it clearly anticipates some role for something like, to the extent that politics is, the distribution of power and control of peoples.
Yeah,
and people have different definition of politics, I suppose. But this seems to anticipate that there is some connection and some moral duty in establishing some level of control, whether that's religious control but it's conscious of the dictates of man and conscious of the notion that like disciples should influence that.
Kind of. I would say that the concept of an institution that is enforcing those rules outside is discouraged in the idea of flipping the script and having everybody only do what they're personally convicted to, and they have like this idea of a central will of a greater thing, and that is the Holy Spirit combining them into one thing, and that's why they all show up to volunteer. That's why they all show up and tithe. That was the whole purpose behind it in the beginning, and now all of those things are like, because I have to, because of obedience, because of this, because of that. And that is like the genre that Christianity has taken and the vibe that it's taken. And the reason that people are like disgusted with it, like reasonably so. And like, yeah.
What would you say to someone's like,
that's how I feel about it.
what would you say? I'm not saying this. What would you say to someone who says something like, this is this is cuckery. You're trying, it's clear you're a disaffected liberal of some kind that is trying to make sense of and unify a Christian outlook and a kind of more gentle and unassuming faith, and to reject the Christian nationalist worldview or the imposition of that. But you're kind of struggling, or I don't know, struggling, but like you're really trying to make your argument based on these verses that you have your own interpretation of what they mean, but other people could come to reasonable interpretations. I think a reasonable interpretation of whatever passages is, I don't know its content, I don't know what the fuck's going on, so fuck if I know.
Yeah.
Is that like you should have some political power, you should spread the faith, and you should make disciples of nations. Nations should therefore be under you. Why is that an unreasonable ruling?
This was a call to missionaries, is the verse that they're quoting.
Okay.
So this is a call to people who have their life changed by Jesus and feel like this experience is so profound that they need to share it with others. And so they go on like a travel or a mission, and they go around like missionaries who knock on doors. That is a descent of this practice. But yeah, so this was a verse being like, hey, anybody who is convicted to do this, go out, make disciples, teach them to follow the ways of Jesus, and then they will go out, make more disciples, and it'll be a compounding effect. And that is actually how Christianity spread in the first 300 to 400 years of it. Like, was this idea of like these traveling men who would go from town to town to town telling the good news, which is what the word gospel was originally supposed to mean. Yeah. And so I would say that what I would say to that idea of like just trying to put these worldviews together and make them squish together is that I had actually left the Christian idea and the Christian faith behind, and I had gone completely into the liberal worldview. And I had stopped, after I stopped going to church and stopped going to the same church, stopped listening to the same people, I realized the incongruencies that I was told were there weren't there. Like and this is going to be the hottest one. This is what basically all the other Christians in the world would categorize me as a old earth creationist, which is the idea that the bones in the ground are created beings, and they were exactly there at the time that they said they were, and there is no contradiction in the Bible behind that. And so then you go into, how do they calculate that the world is 8,000 or 6,000 or 10,000 or 12,000 years old, and go through all that. I've been through all of those arguments, but I find that the Old Testament, especially and so also just real quick, the Bible is such a general thing. I don't know if you've ever heard the term. It's a library,
I've never heard
not a book. The idea is like, so even inside of single books, there's different people writing different things in different periods of time. Like in Genesis 1, like in the beginning, God created the world. That is written in a completely different, in like hundreds of years older style of Hebrew than the entire rest of the Bible.
Oh yeah, and they say like the period affects how we should interpret it. And okay, what's your point, Magma? The point, like, sorry, I get it, but two things. One is I want to get into what convinced you to be a believer again, but then also respond to this. Doobie says, where in the New Testament is Christ's universal kingship limited to personal piety rather than understood as having legitimate claim over earthly governments? He is called ruler of the king of the earth and king of kings. And I'll add, if we're doing etymologies, I believe Messiah means king, or at least anointed one, right? Which is a reference to king.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely, and that is basically right in there. Absolutely kingship, absolutely king above kings. No other king under heaven He like so this is something that's really big is there's a prophecy that Jesus claims to be, which is the guy who receives kingdom and kingship over the entire earth. That's Daniel 7. That is like a big part of it. That's one book of prophecy from the Old Testament about what happens later. But basically that's what this person is referencing. Jesus claims that title, and that is a huge part of the Christian faith. Not saying that I would disagree with any of that. I'm saying that as a servant of Jesus, if you were to be like, hey, I am now under his kingship, I have submitted myself to his reign, what does he ask me to do? And I would ask that person to go look at what Jesus asked his followers to do, which was to spread the word, teach people how to follow, and love as hard as you can, and forgive as much as you can, basically. And so like it's this radical message of if you live the way you should, people will follow suit before you are going to show up and then you're going to bully the crap until someone leaves your church if they are seen holding hands with someone of the same sex in public or something along those lines. And so I'm saying that like the entire purpose, and this is something that Jesus talks about in the book of Matthew, which was written by one of his direct followers who's quoting Jesus. So he's basically saying, hey, woe to you people who are doing this. You're condemning people to hell, the people who specifically are obsessed with law and all about that. I can see if I can pull up the verse real quick, but I think that would probably be a little
Why do you
bit
believe
of
all this stuff? Can I ask? Because like you became an atheist or you
Go
became
ahead.
a non-believer.
Yeah.
I certainly have no interest in becoming very well read on this stuff because I think
Of
that the little I know about the basic tenets of the faith you're able to produce such profound contradictions, in my opinion, that I
What
I
do
think
you say the tenets of the faith are? What, in your impression, in your
to the extent
worldview,
that I
what
think that
you've
there's
experienced?
to the extent that there's like a centrality to the Christian worldview, it's that Jesus is divine, and that Jesus, in other words, Jesus is God.
Yes.
And that he died for our sins. And
Absolutely.
the narrative of Jesus, that is, I think, the centrality. If I could find some, and also I guess a belief in one God, and that God being all powerful, all knowing, and all.
Well, even that is disputable in the Bible. Like there's
Why?
entire sects of Christianity that talk about the other gods in the Bible, and they're spoken of as literal beings ruling over literal lands. They're not. They're not figurative. Like that's how the Bible speaks about them. So if you're going to take the Bible literally,
To the extent that
I'm
referencing like most.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think most.
I'm saying that there's a bunch of disagreements in Christianity, but those things that you named are 100%. What makes a Christian? A Christian is the belief in Jesus and his central claim of kingdom and being God.
This is pure vibes, but I will say I think that 95% of Christians in America are monotheists. At least 95 are monotheists. Believe that Jesus is God. And believe in the centrality of Jesus's his story and his teachings.
Yes, because he made it incredibly easy for it to be a Jesus claimer and a Jesus believer, and that was the essential point, was that no one was able to do it on their own. So he offered this huge pathway by being like, call on me, believe in the Lord Jesus, and you will be saved. And I think that that is the central thing that Christianity has been backpedaling from ever since. Like basically, you won't hear a Christian in today's church say that without being like, well, you have to, well, you have to, well, you have to, well, you have to. And those things are true, but those things aren't what you should be worrying at that moment. And those things are things that take a lifetime to manifest and aren't like the moment you believe your life changes type thing. And so that's what very much people expect, is that like you do this and then now you live a perfect life and you reject everybody in your life who previously did anything else than what's new and what is this Christian lifestyle. And that is also discouraged. And I keep on saying like the Bible or these specific verses. But like, I would like to get into the specifics, but I know that you're time crunched. But I wanted to say that.
Go for it.
Go ahead. Was the one person was claiming in a book, which was a person who's the first, he was the first missionary and he was calling other missionaries to go do the same thing. Jesus absolutely is God, and that is the central core of Christianity. I am actually trying to advocate for a more open form of Christianity, and a Christianity that the first central belief should be like, hey, spread the word of Jesus. And then once they have that relationship with the Holy Spirit, which is like literally the whole point is that like that's why you accept it. So you have God in your life. That is the belief. So that once they have that, they can then talk to God about all of those things, not me grill them personally. And so this is the big difference is like, hey, I'm going to bring this to your attention. But if that person's dealing with something that is much bigger in their life, whether it's the death of a loved one or this or that, hypothetically, God would be aware of those things and then like be ready for them in the moment that they're most willing to come to terms with the fact that they have an addiction or like realize that they're treating their partner badly or those things, that those are for a very specific moment in time. Enforcing those and just confronting people with these uncomfortable truths, no matter how true you believe them to be, is not the style that Jesus ever went about it if this person wanted to emulate Jesus.
I'm hearing you.
I would say where is the cuckoldry and where is the contradiction with the secret claim of Christianity? With my belief, I would say that it is very different, but I would say that there is none true contradiction. I would say that
I think there's a true contradiction
into the
with
Bible,
the problem
you
evil.
realize that
I think problem evil presents
about fire and brimstone is just a lot not of what is in there. What is in there is a lot of love your neighbor, enjoy each other's company, eat and be merry, like don't be an asshole. And follow Jesus and follow the things that he puts on your heart. And so like I just wanted to say that is the real Christianity, the Christian nationalism and the belief that you should enforce this across an entire group of people or borders, or that you need to keep a certain race out. Like that is absurd, because he says whatever you do for the refugee, whatever you do for the homeless is what you're doing to me. So like the idea that the Trump administration is deporting homeless people and keeping all the refugees out and shutting down our programs to allow people in legally, it's antithetical to Jesus. And I would say that, yes, I am in contradiction to that, but they are in contradiction to Jesus more than I would be.
So this is what I'll say to that in response.
Oh, so, wait, I cut out real quick. I can't hear you. One moment.
Can you hear me? Testing one. Hello, I've been trying. Hello. Testing 1, 2, 3. Magma, liquid hot magma. Hello.
I'm so sorry. I just lost audio. I think that
hello?
This might have
Testing?
to be the end of the conversation. I'm not sure what just happened, but you can move on to the next guy.
Wait,
so sorry about that.
Wait. What happened? What the fuck? He's gone. You guys can still hear me though, right? Maybe it's me. Maybe it's real. Okay, we're gonna get to the next people, but just so you guys know my position, I kind of follow Doobie here, where I think even his view entails that the good is defined as like God's will, and what closer to God. And I think most people will like trivially believe that government should do good things and not do bad things. And even this passage that Doobie cites notwithstanding, I think people will accept, like, we don't want the government to do bad, we want them to do good. And if what good is defined with relation to the divine and with relation to God, I think that is at least a very easily obtained inference, or easily, like, people will get to that point simply. And I don't want to like have to dive through a bunch of religious teachings that will require a lot of effort on my end to get them to buy my interpretation with who the fuck am I and who the fuck is Magma? I don't know. You guys can still hear me though, right? Let's I see Magma. Let me just pull him in real quick just to finish off. Yo, Magma, you can hear me now? You're muted.
Sorry about that. Yes, I can.
Okay, cool. So just to finish off, because I see the other two people, but I will say, I think that your view, you still think that like the good is what we ought to do, right? And what we ought to do good, is what is God's will is, right?
The good is what is good for the most people, what will bring the most long-term gain to the most people, which is God's will in the Christian belief. Yeah.
Right. So yeah. Like, I don't understand if that's what your view is of the good, mm-hmm. if they view their methods as being closer to God's will.
You're talking about with the moral objective this?
Basically that I think we want our governments to do good, right? It's not
Yes.
surprising why, in other words, why they would want to mix politics and religion, because people want the government to do good. And if your view of good is defined by God's will, then it's impossible to not have a religious government.
Oh yeah, no, I would say that the advocacy for the people in the government to hold to these tenets and to hold these beliefs, which is absolutely should be there. But I'm saying that the even
Don't
like
enforce them?
the rights given by God to men, like that whole central point of the American Constitution is yeah, like it's just there for fluff. Like it was never truly part of the belief system of the people, because it was never a Christian nation, because you would need everybody in it to be under the same agreements. If you believe that it's a moral good, you should go and you should serve in your community how you feel that. If that's politics, that's awesome. If it's helping in some other way at your local food bank, that's awesome. But like whatever you're personally convicted to do should be what you do. And then Jesus gives us a test, or this is what he says in it's actually I think in every single one of the people that like are quoting Jesus in their book of the Bible. He says, "You will know them by their fruits." Like, beware the people who are claiming my name and are having literal carnage and pain and death in their wake, because the people who are bearing my name and are going out,
Unless
and
God
are, like,
wills it,
having
right?
good results.
If God wills it. I mean, God
Well, I
orders
imagine
a genocide
who
in the Old
where
Testament,
would God
doesn't
order
he?
genocide?
Doesn't he order
Um,
multiple genocides
are you
and
referring to
slavery?
the killing of the Amaleks
Yeah.
or the slavery? Those are two different topics, and I would be willing to broach both of
Okay.
those, but both of those are like 15, 20-minute conversations.
I don't know why.
We
Why
can
can't you
save
just
those for
answer
another
yes
time.
or no? Does God condone slavery?
No, God does not condone slavery, because the chattel slavery term that we have today is not the slavery that was there in the Bible. And in the tribal system and the tribal governments of the Bible, where there was huge groups that were clinging on to single wealthy families that were traveling through the area, because it was a pastoral society where they had like the animals they had was their wealth more than like the cities and the fields and like the property that they had. And so in that society where people were clinging on, those families took servants, and God endorsed that, and that was a practice for about 600 years, and that practice was disbanded around the time that Jesus came. And there's even books in the New Testament of people advocating against slavery, or saying to a slave master for a slave, where both of them were Christians. This is like a church elder is sending a letter to the slave master being like, "Hey, what are you doing keeping this person? Like, what are you doing
I
keeping
just
any
don't know
people
why
if you're claiming
if we have a
faith?"
God that's so capricious that based on like society's dictates or the
Yeah,
peculiarities
that's a great
of that society in a given time, he's liable to support a version of slavery, regardless of what you want to call it. Then I don't
Yeah.
even know what use this gives us, because a God that is
What's the
subject
purpose?
to the whims and the situations of the given societies is no more. It's just as, I don't know, relying on the intersubjective whims of the society as one who just relies on those whims directly. It just feels like an extra steps to justify, horrible shit that humans come up with.
I would say that if God's purpose is to be a God for all of the people, then he would have a different sense of good than any individual nation, and there was no way an individual nation could align themselves to that. Is like the kind of the core incongruency there. Is that like truly, if all of the people have equal weight in his eyes, which is what they claim to believe, the idea of any type of one nation being special, other than the specific statements of the Old Testament, which another thing that you can break into, a huge part of the New Testament is saying that everybody is now accepted into the children of Israel. Like that's a big part of Paul's
yeah?
book.
Do you believe
is
it?
that yeah, I believe that. I mean, that's what it says. It says that when Jesus fulfilled the law, when Jesus came from the line of the Jews, and then he did everything that he was told to do, he allowed for something like a marriage, is what Paul calls it. Paul calls it that Jesus is married to the church, and therefore everybody in the church has married into that like Israeli Jewish family of the original sense, not the modern 1948 sense of like the people of Israel. Everybody marries into that when they accept Jesus into their lives, or when they became Jesus' wife by joining the church.
Got it. Last exchange I want to have, and then we'll move on, but you can come back certainly another day. If God commanded us to take the non-believers as slaves, would it be good?
Non-believers is a interesting category, and one that he doesn't really work with in the Bible. So
Apostates.
I would be skeptical that this person would be in there. If you're asking if God told me to take someone as a slave,
yes,
would I do it?
No, not would you do it. Would it be good?
Would it be good? Would it be a moral good? I guess necessarily.
Yeah.
Yes. If.
I know it's if. I know, and every belief is kind of like that. I mean, you could pull that on me, but it does really feel though that like, the religious explanations for some of the shitty shit, don't make me confident that like what basis do I have that the people who are advocating for shit stuff on the basis of religion, that they're like wrong religiously. Like I don't like, if God was able to do all this, and Dubious give me some examples. Pre-New Testament God allowed Jews to keep non-Jews as slaves permanently. New Testament God says nothing about stopping this. Please ask him to look up Leviticus 25:44-46. I beg you. So I mean, like in that situation, it just feels like, who am I to say that Andrew and them are wrong about their
familiar with that. Yeah. No, I am familiar with exactly that phrase and exactly that verse, exactly what he's talking about. The book of Leviticus is the book of law that is specifically given to the people. And so the book of law is the thing that the Jewish people are supposed to do in order to receive God's favor in the promised land right before they're going. So in the story, they get escaped from Egyptian slavery. They're wandering in the wilderness for 40 years, and they're about to go into the land, and God gives them a bunch of laws in order to maintain favor with God. This was for a place and time, in a place where all of these things were happening. He said this was okay. He said this was not okay. And then later he sent his son, and that kind of flipped the script, is the central belief. Is that at that moment he said, hey, there is no more Jew, which is the special people, and Gentile, which is everybody else. Everybody's exactly the same. And so I would say that is one point towards the anti-slavery. I would say the fact that Jesus does not speak specifically about it, but Paul does, as I already referenced to this person. It's never mentioned in the New Testament. Paul specifically requests to a slave master. I think, I wish I could look up the book. I want to say it's... Philemon, the book of Philemon, is a letter from Paul to a slave master to let a slave go, is what I would tell that person to go look at. It is not a universal condemnation of slavery, but it is something close to it. And I would say that book of Leviticus does not apply, because Jesus is, or that was the verse that I was quoting earlier, is these people who look at the law, point at and go, look. Those people are dragging people to hell. Per, I think, Matthew 22, when he was saying all those people obsessed with law and not the intention behind the law are missing the point.
Well, hey, I appreciate you, Magma. Let's chat again soon.
Some other time. Thank you.
But thank you, and talk soon.
Appreciate it.
Later.
Bye-bye.
All right, we have our religious teachings for the day. We got Good Boy, and he'll be first. What up, Good Boy? How you doing? You're on the air.
Hey,
what can I do for you?
You may not remember, but we've spoken before. I talked to you about the constitutional reform stuff.
Oh yeah, it was like we need like a consortium of people from the business industry or something.
So
experts.
It would have just been, it would have just been like a third of the Senate after an expansion, so one additional senator. But I think that reform takes a lot of explanation and may not have been the foot in the door that I should have let off with the first time. So I have a reform for every branch, but if it's okay with you, and if you don't mind sharing the Supreme Court reform that I have idea.
Sure. What's your Supreme Court reform idea?
So it's titled the Unified Supreme Court. The basic idea is to expand the court based off of judicial circuits and apportion it into 2 divisions. And then those divisions can convene jointly en banc, in which case they would have full judicial review powers. But the divisions would be an orders division and an opinions division. The opinions division being the traditional appellate court of the Supreme Court, and then the orders division basically being the separation of the shadow docket powers. So they would have certiorari to some extent. They would have supervision of the lower courts, and they would have pre-certiorari relief powers.
Yeah, like the emergency stuff.
And then, the unified Supreme Court would be the original jurisdiction, judicial review, fundamental questions sort of court.
Yeah, but so talk me through it. Talk to me about what problems it solves, because my immediate thing always, and maybe this is like a tick of mine, maybe this is like a mental problem I have. It's like my immediate thing when I hear something new is to like reject it and like scrutinize it. Always.
Of course.
That's just like always my whenever like someone says something that I'm like doesn't gel with me, and I think sometimes it's a little bit, it reinforces static thinking, and I'm trying to be more open and less scrutinizing, but in a way it's like kind of hard to change your base nature. But immediately I'm thinking like, oh my God, the orders branch is going to take complete control because everything's on emergency docket and everyone is reviewing on emergency. So like, who the fuck cares about the opinions opinions division? And I'm like, what the fuck does it matter? Like so to what extent, like what problems is it solving? And why would the orders branch not like be the most important, especially in this context where everything seems to be like resolving? Is it maybe because the opinions docket would ultimately be like the last word? And so if the orders docket gets too crazy or something, I don't know, but go ahead.
So the orders docket basically, or the orders division,
my bad.
Yeah. They have certiorari. However, it would be, if it were framed under my reform, it would be that they could only, or they would have to have at least a quorum of 2/5 of the members in order to initiate certiorari. And then additionally, the opinions court would have an override. So if they said, we would rather review this, they could get 2/3 of their members to override that certiorari decision, or vice versa. If they don't want to see, if they think they can reject it, then boom, it's out of there.
Sorry. So in granting certiorari, so guys, for those of you guys who don't know what certiorari is one of these old writs that is literally an order for a lower, either appellate court or trial court, to give over like its documents to the higher court to basically prepare for an appeal. So it's now used as like interchangeably with granting like an appeal in the normal course of things. So that's what we're talking about now with like discussing this, like when the Supreme Court in his proposal kind of divides the Supreme Court into 2 divisions. And the one of which he's proposing is the orders, which deals with a lot of like the emergency stuff that's coming up through the quote unquote shadow docket. And then like an opinions division, which is dealing with the court's original jurisdiction. That's when the court is acting as a trial court. So when you bring this into the Supreme Court as a court of first instance, very rare. Usually it's a limited amount of original jurisdiction the court has.
The appellate jurisdiction, sorry.
Oh, sorry. You said the original jurisdiction of the court as well. I assume that
the original jurisdiction would belong to the unified form. So basically and the way that I frame the unified form is that when the 2 divisions sit, when they convene jointly and they sit in equal number on both sides, right? So the way that I've set this up is like you expand the court based on the circuits. So there's 13 appellate circuits, and you would get 2 judges for every circuit. And then one of those judges would go to the orders and one of them would go to the opinions. And what that essentially does is it makes the orders sides, they have like odd number judges, and then when they convene jointly, they have an even number of judges.
Okay. Wait, when
Yeah.
meaning when both divisions meet, they're even.
Right. So they're both the Supreme Court, but only under the unified condition can they do like original jurisdiction, which like cases of original jurisdiction
Okay,
would
sure.
automatically go to them.
Yeah, okay,
convene
it's
jointly.
a small amount. Okay.
Yeah.
So, but just for the audience, so there's I guess a sense in which the courts can be unified for different functions. One of which is to hear courts under its original jurisdiction, and also in determining whether the opinions division gets a writ of certiorari. It sounds like the orders division also has some say in it. That 2/5 of the opinions division can grant cert, and they can be overturned. Tell me if I'm wrong.
A quorum of 2/5 on the order side, right? And so a majority of those, and it doesn't, it could be like the whole court, but just a majority of the court, or anything above 2/5, right? So it's like an anti-majority sort of quorum. And then on the opinion side, they could override those decisions if they thought they wanted to see a case, or if they didn't want to see a case with a 2/3 majority.
Oh, to hear on cert okay, so it's 2/5 for orders and
majority or 2/3 majority
on.
So it's kind of like flipped. It's like
so
anti-majority on one side,
2/5 to hear, or 2/5 not to hear.
2/5, like they just can make the decision. So, you're saying like if they vote to hear by majority versus the default being to hear, right?
Sorry. So I'm thinking about the decision of cert, and that decision is the decision about whether to grant cert is first in which division?
The orders.
Orders. And orders will grant cert, meaning it will send it to the opinions, right?
Right. For appellate jurisdiction.
If and when a 2/5 majority says so.
A quorum of 2/5 can make the decision.
Correct. My bad.
Yeah.
Sorry. A 2/5 says so. Okay. And if they decide to deny cert, the opinions can override that the initial denial of cert with 2/3. That's what you're saying?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Got it. So that makes sense. What problems is this division solving?
So a few different issues. Number one, and probably the most important, I think, is the overall judicial review issue that has been kind of like this whole the Supreme Court has the power to overturn federal laws. It has the ability to, overturn its own precedent, et cetera, answer these fundamental questions of separation of powers. And so I think the biggest part of the reform is they can only do things like that. And it's spelled out in my writing that they can only do such things under specific conditions, right? And that is when they're in the unified form. And what is it? Under 1 second. Let me just read it out for you. No judgment of a division or of the unified Supreme Court declaring any law of the United States unconstitutional, overruling its own precedent, or deciding any question of fundamental constitutional import shall stand, except when no less than 2/3 of the judges of each division are present in equal number, and upon the concurrence of their majority, so sitting en banc. So that's like one of the biggest issues it solves. And then, of course, the other issue is the shadow docket power, dividing that between two different courts that are both basically the Supreme Court.
Can I ask, why does that solve the problem? So is the problem that the court too readily invalidates statutes of Congress using judicial review, or the court too readily overturns its own precedent? Is that the problem?
Not that it too readily does it, but basically that it's sort of like a power that has been given to them by implication, by ambiguity in the writing of Article 3, right?
Oh, so you're doubtful about whether it's even an established power of the court to overturn itself, or just judicial review?
No, I'm not doubtful. I think many things could be given by implication, and I think that's fine. I
But
think it's good
but
that
presumably that could be resolved just by. I mean, this would all need to be done through a constitutional amendment anyway. So I imagine that the legitimacy issue would more readily be solved by just saying the Supreme Court shall have the authority of judicial review and shall have the authority to overturn its own decisions. So isn't the legitimacy problem that you're identifying more readily solved by just making clear what I think was abundantly implied?
Yeah. So there are other details in here that might make it more clear, but let me just say, I don't think that judicial review itself is like an unwarranted power for the court to have. I just think that the way it can be used over a long period of time, given that judges have lifetime appointments, can make the court sort of like more powerful in its own right, but can also entrench partisan politics. Right? It can give their side, as we see like in rulings that may come up soon, about like gerrymandering, for example, or like the Voting Rights Act. They can advantage their team, as it were, in order to make sure that Congress doesn't take any action against the court that would basically fundamentally change it, right? Because as you and I know, like the way that Article 3 is written is that Congress has a shit ton of power over.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Yeah. So they could fundamentally alter, we could pack the courts, we could do all kinds of things. And I think that over the long haul, and as Amy Coney Barrett has kind of
but I want that to happen.
No, of course. But my concern is that I think we need to have overall a balanced court, right? And I don't think that that's going to come from court packing. I think it has to be a more robust sort of reform, right?
Oh, I agree, but why should it be the divisions? Because doesn't that just reproduce all the problems that we're targeting? So the supposed partisan nature of the court, in what sense is that like alleviated by divided in two? If anything, it would seem to give more opportunities for aspiring rules lawyers and aspiring like little sneaky shenanigans players to like play with these additional bottlenecks and do additional sneaky things. And so I'm just like wondering, in what is the division solving?
Yeah. So this is where I get into the detail a bit. All right. So the opinions division has an appointment procedure, the same as it always does, right, with the Supreme Court. And the reason that this calls for a constitutional constitutional amendment is the appointment procedure
you're not
for
going to nominate
orders.
them. These are going to be by lawyers, I'm guessing.
No. Instead, what we're going to do for these guys, the orders division, is we are going to have them nominated by the governors of the states of the regions, of the appellate regions. With, of course, the advice and consent.
Who themselves are Article 3 judges?
No, the governors.
These are the
governors of the states.
The governors of the states.
They will work together, right? So let's say Circuit 5. Yeah, Circuit 5.
Why should we reintroduce the problem of the Senate and the problem of that emerges in the Electoral College? Why should we reintroduce it twice? Because already the president gets the benefit of that. Why should we reintroduce it again for the second division of the Supreme Court?
Well, because so the way that I'm thinking of this in my brain is that these judges would essentially be like downward facing judges, right? They oversee the appellate regions, the appellate courts, the inferior courts, including the district courts. They issue emergency relief and all this stuff. They don't issue appellate rulings. And it's basically a sort of like federalist reform, right? So we take something like the Fifth Circuit and we say, who are the governors of the Fifth Circuit? It's like Texas,
all
Louisiana,
the craziest people
Alabama.
in the world. Yeah. Abbott.
Sure. But we take a judge from one of those inferior courts and we say, or we take a handful of judges and, they have to hammer out like who they want to be, whoever. Advice and consent of the Senate is involved, right? We get a
but not the
confirmed judge.
president's. But isn't it going through because the president's presumably have put into place, because you're not talking about taking from state courts, you're talking about taking from lower federal courts, right?
Right.
Okay, so presumably the step that's being taken away from the president is, thank you so much for the membership, guys, is the step of elevating an existing judge to the Supreme Court specifically. That's being
but
given
a specific, but a specific division of the Supreme Court that only has specific powers and can only convene on matters of, constitutional import when they're convening with the other side, right? So they don't have appellate powers. They only have the powers of the shadow docket, right? Which is, so that's why I'm like, I hear your concerns about governors are like partisan actors, right? And so a lot of this could muddy the waters in terms of like judicial election.
You understand why? Because there's like a gerrymandering issue now with the 13 circuits. Because
no, of course,
you could, if it's like not state by state by state, then like an arbitrary region, they have to collectively nominate. And now there's like a gerrymandering of the circuits, because you could put, Connecticut with some other red state, or, put Florida with two other you know what I'm talking about? Where you cut the circuits in such a way to maximize partisan advantage. So I'm concerned about that. And I think that governors are crazy.
Yeah. I mean, in a constitutional reform like this, you would have to spell out because you can't just say in the Constitution, well, take the appellate regions, right? Because those are sort of like creatures of statute and everything. So you'd have to spell out okay, we've got these appellate regions that we can create.
But then
regional,
you're trying to ignore. I see what you're like. There's I understand some of the points, like you're trying to avoid partisanship explicitly but then it's like arbitrary, and then it can result in unfair partisan advantage by just mere because like the states can shift in such a way that like Republicans get like this humongous edge in the circuits as well. I'm just like, I'm conscious of that, but sorry, keep going.
Yeah. So, and I keep all of this in mind in terms of a few things, right? So number one is the creation of appellate circuits, which has to be spelled out in such a constitutional amendment. The way in which they can be created, which is like, say, contiguous, no less than 3 states, and then the number of national composed regions or courts.
No, but the question is like, why contiguous, right? Like the contiguous to avoid partisanship as a basis for these districts. But like, is there anything like inherently valuable about contiguousness as a aspect for? Okay, go for it.
Yeah, I mean, it's part of the reason that the Ninth Circuit, people want to break it up because the case workload is so high, and also it takes a while for, say, some of these litigants to go from one region to another, right? Like you've got people that are living in I forget exactly which states are involved, but they'd be living in like Washington or Nevada, and they have to go all the way to Hawaii or something in order to litigate their case, and even judges for that matter, right? So there are reasons to separate these regions, like
sure, no, but for purposes of Supreme Court allotment and for this specific division, what I'm concerned about is like, what are we solving for? And it seems like the problem that we're trying to solve for here is some kind of political rulings, some kind of unfairness in who gets to put seats into the Supreme Court. Like what? I'm really trying to understand the issue this solves. Now, adding for workload purposes, I think it's a big problem. But I think the solution to workload is adding more judges. But tell me what problem we're solving in this appointment process.
Yeah, I mean, but that goes for the Supreme Court as well, adding more judges.
Sure, yeah. But I just think we should add them.
Well, yeah, but think about it this way: having this division, it frees up the opinion side to more carefully consider even more cases having to do with appellate.
So would adding more judges.
Of course. But having this sort of like division of labor, right? Wherein one side deciding on certiorari can, within a specified amount of judges, could like divide even within its own chambers to say like this case, not that case, this case, not that case, right? But aside from that, with the fundamental questions, I have concerns about like the partisan projects that may or may not be going on, right?
Yeah.
It seems kind of apparent, right?
But aren't you reintroducing them
and
because you're not taking away that incentive, like, and you're introducing additional political actors with their own partisan agendas, namely state actors, the heads of the state executives. And so, in what sense are we subtracting the political machinations available?
Well, when you say subtracting, I mean, I'm just thinking in terms of like, I don't think there is much of a practical escape from like partisan politics per se.
Yeah.
I just think it has to be mitigated, right? It's like in
No, I agree.
what Madison said about factions. Right?
I kind of agree with that. I'm just, but my question is like, in what sense is this mitigating as opposed to adding? Because my take on it is maybe it's adding because you're separating powers into different groups of hands, and so in the Madisonian sense, I guess you're maybe you're adding, but subtracting or mitigating in some sense. But it could also just be adding too, like you're giving the potential for, let's say that you have like a Democratic president. A Democratic president is it doesn't have any openings on the opinions division, and all the Republican governors, with consent of a Republican Senate, just ram through a bunch of vacancies on the orders, and the orders just like keep on cucking the opinions. And the president never, like, I can imagine scenarios in a situation which already favors small states and in that sense favors Republicans, giving them additional controls now in even cucking further a Democrat's president's attempt to put people on the Supreme Court, depending on where the vacancies show up and which, and even potentially giving cover for Republicans choosing to throw in these people, as opposed to like when the country collectively votes on the president. Now he's going to have even less an opportunity, and it's going to be given more favor to states, because that's ultimately what the system seems to be reproducing, is a state bias, and that bias, at least recently, has been to the Republicans' benefit.
Yeah. So I do have I have to answer this in like three ways, right? Number one is, we always run this risk with a single president nominating the Supreme Court justices.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Number two, I do have in my writing reforms for gerrymandering, and I call for House expansion and stuff like that, like the cube root rule. But lastly, for these judges, so one of the things that I've done in this is to sort of separate them from the traditional appellate in different ways, right? One of those is the appointment procedures. The other one is they have a sort of like soft term limit. So they get appointed for 7 years, upon which time they could be reappointed, they could be replaced. And for the first 3 terms, they have an automatic reappointment provision. And after that, they have to be either reappointed or replaced. So there's a sort of like feature in their appointment process that keeps governors motivated, and therefore the electorate who, elect their governors, motivated in sort of like balancing out the court over time, right? As best they can. I mean, with the way that the American electorate works, it's not easy to sort of mitigate these top level issues. But this is sort of the idea, is like, if we've got a judge we really like and the electorate seems like good with it over a long period of time, we don't have to play partisan games as much, or political games as much. But we can if we really need to.
But isn't that the whole, like, if the public's okay with it, any hook, like one of the reasons for lifetime appointments presumably is to be independent of what the public is okay with, and the notion of if the public's okay with it, that it seems inherently, like you say, it's inescapably political and partisan. I kind of agree with your point that like some of these top level issues are impossible to take away. Like in some sense, I think people have a trouble coming to terms with with the fact that we have a people problem, and it's hard to say, and like
Yeah.
there just is, I think, a lack of respect and attention to things that deserve it, and sometimes people are, and everyone must know this, like able to be swept away by the moment and the passions of whatever's happening in the current meta. I'm interested more in hearing fully out your proposals. I'm conscious that there's one last person in the waiting room.
Of course.
Why don't you DM me again? If you already did, I'm sorry I didn't take a look at it. I've been going through a lot in the last few months in terms of other work streams, but send it to me again if
No
you
worries.
give your proposals, and let's talk about it sometime.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll have to re-DM it to you because
Yeah.
I've made a lot of adjustments since. But
Got it.
yes, yeah, always working.
And listen,
so.
I appreciate creativity. So even though I will always like initially be like, what about this? Doesn't mean that. That's just how I grapple with new ideas that are presented with me. So don't take.
Yeah,
personal.
absolutely. I love the friction. We've got to move towards something, right? So.
Yeah. Well, appreciate you, good boy. And sorry, there was a question from a super chat. Could explicit court packing and the orders problem be avoided by doubling Supreme Court seats, maintaining 9 judge decisions, and random assignment to cases? Your response to that?
Random assignment to cases, like random assignment, as in like within the quorum number that's required by law.
I think he's saying outside the framework that you're providing. In the current framework, in the current meta, if we double Supreme Court seats, maintain 9 judge decisions, and randomly assign those cases to in a total population of 18, right? So and it's a random who gets the 9, who gets the case.
Maybe, but when you talk about court packing, say you double the size of the court, again, I'm still left with like if you increase the size of the court by that much under the existing rules of appointment, you not only do you have to decide, okay, we're going to have this one president, pick all of the Supreme Court judges, and you might think that president is like the best guy ever, right? But we're still going to be left with, is the court actually legitimate, right?
Oh, you could just stagger it,
then,
right? You could stagger it.
Well, sure, but then think about even in the long term, you've got double the size of the court. You're more likely to run into mass vacancies, right, over a long period of time in a single elected term. So, or even an elected term or 2 elected terms, right? 8 years is a long time to have vacancies fill out, even if you have staggered terms, even if you have this or that, right? So one guy may always be choosing, and that guy is going to be partisan by just the nature of presidential elections, right? So I'm just trying to sort of solve multiple problems at the same time in this reform. And I think the federalist aspect of it, along with the traditional aspect of it, sort of balance it out in the unified form and apply appropriate powers to the downward-facing court and the appropriate powers to the upward-facing court, which retains its lifetime appointments. And so that's kind of the motivation behind it.
Well, I appreciate the spunk, and I look forward to seeing it.
Yeah, absolutely. Have a good one.
All right,
and happy Thanksgiving too.
Happy Thanksgiving, Pilgrim. Light up. All right, last caller. Hey, what up, bro?
Hey, how's it going?
Going well. What can I do for you?
Hey, so I think you're a little too doomer on the whole Groyper takeover of Republicans. I do think that's probably in the cards for the Republican Party, but I don't think the demographics are in their favor long term.
The racial or age-related demographics in terms of voting?
Probably both.
Okay.
It's kind of the intersection of the two.
Nice.
So, yeah, I did a little research when I heard you say that you were super black-pilled on that, and it's from this one study that I seen at the Public Religion Research Institute. They've got like Gen Z religiosity it's shifted slightly towards people who identify as Christians of color, and that's naturally going to have some anti-selective favoring towards not the Groypers, just because most people don't want to get killed.
Yeah.
And then there's also just a general trend. If you look at a shift in 2025, I'm comparing this now to like a Gallup poll. Uh, the religiosity for Gen Z just keeps dropping, and so I see the Groypers as, they're really, I think, more of an issue in contemporary times, where they're able to, through their sort of like secret clandestine activities of trying to infiltrate groups, like they're able to take advantage of these boomers who are like ancient. They don't recognize all the memes and layers of satire that they're operating with, and so they can kind of get lulled into a sense of supporting these actions.
Oh,
But
really?
I just don't see. Sorry.
That's interesting because that's counterintuitive to me. Oh, sorry. Hang on one second. My camera just turned off. Just give me one quick second.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. What's counterintuitive to me is the notion that like the right is more the older generation are more susceptible to the Groypers. That's not what I would expect. But you tell me why you think that. The left seems, the younger seem more susceptible to Groypers. But maybe that's just intuition.
What I mean by when I say they're susceptible to it is, I think the older generations are more susceptible to being fooled by the sort of the more subtle, like hiding their power level, basically. Like, some 60-year-old guy who isn't aware of internet culture isn't going to understand what like bacon cookie memes mean, or he's not going to recognize all of these dog whistles that they use. And so when Fuentes goes on somewhere and he hides his power level and he just says, "Oh, I just want to bring American jobs for Americans," something like that. That guy's like, "Oh yeah, I'm totally on board with that." But he doesn't realize that he's supporting people like the young Republicans who are like, "I love Hitler." Oh, sorry, I don't know if I can say that on stream. Sorry.
It's okay.
But oh, okay. Yeah, but I love, evil people or whatever. They can. I think that's sort of like that's one of the reasons why they do that, is because they can fool people who don't know any better, and they can say certain keywords that will get them on their side and use them as a voting block. But I see this as something that's probably going to end soon. As the boomers start to die out, I don't see that as being, something that can sustain itself. Just because most religious people, in the younger generations, according to this study at least, are not by a huge amount, by 2 points only, but they identify as Christians of color, and people in general just getting less religious over time.
So let me see if I can reassert what you said. So even though I think you ultimately agree that the Groyper project is a viable one, I think I'm hearing you say that, right?
I think, like, if, for example, let's say we had a multi-party system in the United States, I think the Groypers could create a new party if we were switched to like a parliamentary system,
like a reform style UK, not necessarily in the politics, but in the style of like their plan to sweep some at least significant percentage that they could take advantage of in winner take all elections.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So to the extent that you think that it's not viable, it's because A, we don't live in a multi-party system, and B, because of the religious views of young minority people?
Sorry, could you do that one more time?
Yeah. So you think that the Groyper project in converting the Republicans to be more like Fuentes, more Groyper-ish, that is not, you're not as black-pilled because you think in general young people who are minorities, they're more religious, and because we have a two-party system.
I think it's. I don't think the two-party system really has a ton to do with it. That's more about like their ability to be identifiable. I think it's mostly just the demographics. The fact that all the people who identify as religious or most of the people who identify as religious seem to be people of color, and the Groypers are pretty much explicitly, for white religious people. So yeah.
I think so you think that like the shift in religiosity that people are noticing is more the people that you would think traditionally would be against a message of white nationalism, right? Because they're not white.
I think there's a slight selective bias against it. Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of people who are, they're effectively rubes. Where I'm pretty black-pilled on America in general, right at the moment, at least.
Yeah.
But in this sense, I think when the chips are down, I feel like at some point, the Latino incel guy is going to be like, hey, wait, these guys, they want to throw me in an oven or something like that. I think at some point
Yeah,
that's going
but
to come to
like,
realization.
can I get real with you?
Yeah.
You got, what do these people have in common? Nick Fuentes, Kanye West, Myron Gaines, like even
I 100% agree, but
Aiden
I think there's
Ross.
a high. Mm-hmm.
Oh, thank you for the raid. Appreciate the raid. Thank you. Go ahead.
Well, yeah, I think these people are given like a high degree of visibility, right? If we were to just say, well, look at all the black conservatives out there. We've got Candace Owens, we've got Kanye West, we've got those Hodge twins and all these other people, right? You can point to tons and tons of black conservatives, but in general, like black people are by far the least conservative group. And so I think one of the reasons why these people stand out, Fuentes less so. I agree, Fuentes himself is at risk from his own movement, but I feel like there's a slight trend. So it's going to be selective against them. They're not to say that there's not going to be any, like black people or Latino guys or whatever who join up with the Grapers and were like, yeah, I'm on Team Graper. But I think there's going to be a slight pressure against it because especially as they gain more power, they're going to have to try to mainstream their ideology more. And that's going to mean more white nationalist, white supremacist talking points. And that's going to push people away. They're like, hey, what's going on here? Kind of like I
wish I could
comedian dude who.
Yeah, I wish I could be confident in that though. But like that's what someone might have said about Trump in 2024. Like, look at all the fucking crazy shit they were saying about immigrants and about Hispanic people specifically, including Puerto Rico and including Mexicans, to say nothing of like Haitians and other forms of people who they like attacked. And I think that the response from a lot of those people is like, well, yeah, we don't really believe it. Yeah, whatever, but they have really good economics. Yeah, but we don't want to be controlled by Israel. Like, I could just very easily see, like, oh, that's just memes that you don't understand it. And I think that the fact that even now I kind of see them trying to be more palatable, saying things like, we'll get together with the lefties on like Ro Khanna and like we love every person and like we don't hate Jews, that kind of stuff. So I think that they're already starting to like more normalize their message a little bit to be more palatable. But also I think that human beings have a way of like reasoning away their votes that are not as much based on like logically, why would you vote for someone who's so bad to your interest? I mean, that's true of so many different groups that voted for Trump in 2024, but it didn't matter, so it doesn't assuage me.
Yeah, I don't mean to say that there's like no risk at all. That's definitely not what I do think the Grabers represent a risk to America,
Okay.
Even if they never get power. Let's say like it's still a serious issue that there's like basically an openly white supremacist sect of Republicans who are out there voting, and they seem to have infiltrated a large portion of like youth Republican governance and other organizations like that. That's definitely very scary, and I do think it is a problem. I don't see it as like the most likely outcome is basically what I'm saying.
Okay.
I don't know if it's like even the third most likely outcome. I'd say
what do you think
like
is most likely?
Maybe
or second most
honestly,
likely?
I would say I'm not quite sure, but of all the other
that's
options,
my problem, bro. I don't really see the post-Trump world. If I'm failing to see, and maybe another one will emerge, and maybe there'll be another vision that that unifies this space or this movement or whatever. But so much of the ideology of pre-Trump Republicans has been hollowed out or rejected, either the neocon ideology or the kind of standard principles of Republicans pre-Trump, that it's like, what is left? What is left that's tangible and that's accepted by I don't know. I don't see a figure among the Republicans that can make sense of what Trump has left behind currently. And so when you say like, I don't know what it is, but it's probably not Fuentes, if you're unable to identify some kind of standard bearer or some kind of like through line there that that you think is viable, then that's concerning for me.
No, I agree. It is concerning, not knowing is, like fear of the unknown is like one of our most primal fears. I totally get you there. And I'm also afraid for this exact same reason.
Yeah.
But what I would say to that is I think what we can expect from the next sort of right wing, like I think we're going to get another demagogue, just like Trump. I don't know who it could be, but probably someone from a similar vein, from an entertainment background. They are able to acquire a large audience, maybe like Joe Rogan style, but slightly more intelligent and on less gear or something. And they are just it's just pure strongman vibes. Everything is just charisma. They talk big. And I think what the threat there is Trump has already laid the groundwork. He's like a Sulla for Rome, except, we're Rome here. And in 30 years, 40 years, I think someone like that could come in and using Trump as precedent, use all the exact same things. And how hard it is to amend our constitution, I don't see a fix coming. That's the bad outcome for me. And I think that's very likely. So
I'm nervous by the fact, and not that didn't see this kind of coming, but the fact that Trump and Vance are walking on eggshells around the issue of Fuentes, right? Like, Trump said Fuentes' name the other day, and it's like, you should be able to interview Fuentes, whatever. Like, Trump knows who this dude is, and they're not condemning him. And Vance knows who these people are, and he may have at one point condemned Fuentes, but he at one point condemned Trump, for what good that is. For whatever reason, these people don't want to get on the bad side of the Groypers or Fuentes. That is meaningful to me. And that suggests to me that they think that either they need them or they want them, or that they're willing to make deals with them. So, like, JD Vance, as a person, as an entity, to the extent that he's able to win the election and he's unable to distance himself from Groyperism, that just, I think, means that Groyperism is having its effect and is gaining strength. If the leader of the party is unwilling to condemn the Groypers, let's say, for example, they invite Fuentes to CPAC to, like, announce his support for a candidate that they judge to be America First, that to me is a different kind of infestation of that ideology. If they're able to either occupy the seats of power specifically, or if they're able to put everyone in fear or make everyone want to kowtow to them or to get in their favor, I think that it's all part of the same thing, which is the growth of the Groyper movement, and ultimately the lack of any other viable energetic through line.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what you said.
Yeah.
One thing I would push back on a little bit there is I do think I think it's more just a miscalculus on the side of, like, JD. I think he really does just see the Groypers as people who he can try to curry favor with. I think they, in some sense, see the writing on the wall with Trump that he's not going to live forever, and two, it's just sort of starting to crumble. And so I think they're looking at avenues to try and maintain this coalition, and they don't want to piss anyone off. And JD thinks that he can control the Groypers. That's my theory, because I don't think they're as stupid as they sound on TV. People like Dan Crenshaw, I think he hates Trump, but he's willing to brown nose him for as long as he needs. And I think that's just pretty common now in Republican politics, is that they are all just willing to get on their knees and jerk each other off.
But the fear is the Groypers are ideological in a way that the other MAGA cocksuckers weren't, right? Like, the Trump people like Cat Turd and these other people, they're not ideological. They're like, they're just sycophants. They're worshiping power. And Fuentes is ideological in a way that Trump simply is not. And that makes it harder to deal, right? It's hard to deal away principle in that sense. And to the extent that it's happening, it's a deal on the terms of someone like Fuentes. But that, I think, makes them more difficult to just brush away. Like, Trump can kind of corral the Republican Party how he wants, but ultimately, what do we have to think about is who among Trump's inner circle has an ideology, and what do they like, and what do they want, and what are they able to give to Trump? And so that is kind of like why I'm skeptical of a kind of a JD Vance, of a notion of JD Vance that is able to outsmart and outthink the Groypers in that sense. One is, I don't know that he doesn't impress me that much, JD. I mean, some people are impressed by him, but he doesn't. But I think that, like, also the Groypers and Fuentes himself are probably less willing to deal ideologically than someone who is basically only motivated by self-enrichment and increased power and increased corruption like Trump is. That makes it seem like he's willing to strike a much harder bargain, even letting Democrats win entire elections. Right, he's signaled he's willing to do that, and he did not vote for Trump. And I believe him when he says that he wants to oppose any candidate in a national election that doesn't agree with America First as he understands it. So all that is me saying, like, I think any deal or appeasement of the Groypers will need to be substantive, because I don't think they'll settle for less.
Yeah, I think that's true. I guess the only part that we're really disagreeing then on is like, what are the odds that the Groypers are the movement that ends up succeeding at the end of the day? I agree that they're 100% by far the most ideologically motivated, and the fact that they are they make up the youngest cohort of the Republican coalition is, that's a bad sign for the future. But I just think that the fact that the Republican Party is probably going to have like a collapse moment after Trump kicks the bucket, and I'm not sure there's going to be enough. There's going to be enough like because like I said before, he's not genuinely he doesn't admire Fuentes or the Groypers. He's only doing it as a brown noser, and I don't think there's going to be enough time, and there's not enough momentum yet. And all of these Republicans are just too young at the moment to have sort of curried this power base that they would need in order to do this coup of the Republican Party. I think that's one major problem they're going to have to deal with, that the timing is just, it's too soon and too late. And also that I think that when the chips are actually down, I think that most people would, at least the highly motivated voters, they're just not going to come out. So sorry, the poorly motivated voters, they're not going to come out for Fuentes. Like, as much as charismatic as
I
he
agree
is,
with that.
his reach is still too small.
I think electorally, he's to go with him would be less opportunity for the Republican Party. I think, no doubt. I think that they'll be less apt to win elections on a Fuentes style line. That's not a question for me. I just don't think it's past the American people to ultimately be so pissed off with Democratic governorship or with the economic conditions to just vote for the alternative. And the alternative might be something like it's kind of like if you put in charge a party that like has to solve inflation and solve all these issues, and they fail to live up to it. If the alternative could be anything. It could be like belief in radical Islam or something. I don't even know what it would be, but like it will move people to just vote for the fucking fuck you party. And I don't want to make the Republican Party like Groypers, because we're just one election, one year or 2 year rise in prices away from a disaster. And that's all I think, unfortunately, that keeps the American people from voting in literal fascists, is like the price of eggs, the price of goods, and I guess their vibes about the economy.
Yeah. On that, what I'll say is, and like I said, I'm generally black-pilled on the American project at the moment. I feel like our Constitution is way too old and outdated and it's too hard to update to fix the issues. But I do think that a lot of what you described is due to Republican obstructionism over the past like 30 years.
Oh, no doubt.
Just dug their heels in. And the problem, though, is that now I think that's coming to roost, and all these issues, if Trump is like the culmination of what like the dark side of that Republicans have been kind of, feeding into for the past 30 years since Gingrich, now they're sort of reaping that whirlwind, and all
we are too.
Down.
They are.
No, sorry. What I mean is that they're getting blamed for it, right? For the first time, Trump's numbers are down on everything. Republicans are now seen as bad for the economy. Trump his corruption is becoming more obvious. It's not as obvious as it really should be. All these things are kind of coming down, and it's kind of like because of the fact that that party has no future after Trump. I think that that's going to lead to like a total collapse of any will for them to be able to like put up serious resistance to Democrats. Like, they're going to realize that like obstructionism, it hasn't worked. It led to like one of the worst eras for our country in the past, probably since like the Great Depression.
You're predicting bipartisanship? You're predicting a new era of good feelings and bipartisanship?
No, not bipartisanship. What I predict is that there will just be a lack of incentive for Republicans, because they have no real movement. It's all just anti-Democrat. And when there's nothing left to hold the coalition together, there's not going to be a strong enough will to oppose Democratic norms. That's a white pill version of me. Now, what I see as a problem is the fact that there's way too much institutional difficulty in achieving it's just too difficult to get anything done in this country, just by design. We're never going to pass another constitutional amendment unless like a civil war were to happen. Right? I mean, it's just way too hard to pass an amendment, especially one that substantially, alters the Constitution. Like, if you look at all the ones since the Civil War, other than like women's right to vote and I guess the income tax, they're mostly over relatively small things by comparison to like, 14th Amendment or something.
Well, I think the prospects for a constitutional amendment, I agree, are dim, but I frankly think there's a lot we could do with legislation and a lot of productive areas for Democrats to seek wins. I'm worried about if they don't manage to make those successes via legislation in the areas that the country wants to improve, that they'll be blamed. And if the other side is something horrible, then I think the American people are able, I'm not saying it will happen, but they're capable of voting that. I'll give you the final word and then I got to go. But thank you so much for your comments. And your white, listen, I appreciate the attempt to white pill. I mean, that is ultimately, I think, a good impulse and it's praxis. And I, again, thank you for it.
Yeah, I guess the only thing I'm gonna leave on is that if there's anything to be white pilled on, it's the fact that the Groypers aren't, and we can agree that the Groypers are not electorally favored in the future.
Yeah, I agree with that.
That's definitely the worst outcome. So at least we won't get the worst outcome.
Well, just because I don't think that they're relatively favored doesn't mean they couldn't win. That's where I'm like, yes, I think that they're relatively disfavored compared to current Trump incumbent Republican Party. But that is, I think, not enough for me to rest easy. But hey, thank you for the white pill and appreciate you.
All right, thanks, bro. Take care.
Yep. Hey guys, appreciate you. Like the stream. It's funny when you do this. It's a nice little prank when you sub, super chat. All that stuff it's a nice little joke, nice little meme. We have more stuff to cover. I just need to prepare for it. Maybe tomorrow. Oh, I might have certain obligations tomorrow. Some family stuff as well. But definitely Monday. Love you guys very much. Stay cool. Stay everything you want to be. Except if you want to be a murderer, I guess. Exol, I'm referencing some stuff vaguely remember from college. All ideologies are unique to time and place. Interesting, Exol. Do you celebrate Thanksgiving? I do. We love celebrating the peaceful and joyous coming together of two groups of people, Native American Indians and the Pilgrims. We love that they came together peacefully, settled their differences, and partook in the joyous abundance of the New World, this untouched, unblemished continent. And I love that that's the true story and that's what actually occurred. And yeah, don't you love that? I appreciate you guys. Have a great rest of your weekend. My heart goes out to you.